Welcome to the True Detective Podcast, where the Lorehounds, your guides to the weirdness of the long night. I'm David.
I'm John, and this is our coverage for Season 4, Episode 4 of True Detective Night Country on HBO Max.
We're going to start off with our hot takes and then get right into a full scene-by-scene breakdown of the episode, followed by listener feedback. John and I have a side bet. Can we do it in 90 minutes?
No. I have zero. You said that to me a week ago, and that was a 2.5 hour podcast.
I know. This episode's a little different.
So we do have press screeners, by the way. So we're recording these a little bit in advance, just a few days. But we will be recording and releasing these just after the episode airs Sunday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. We want to enjoy the mystery of the show along with everyone, so we're not watching any further ahead than the current episode. So don't worry, we're not being cute about any of our spoilery knowledge.
It's so hard. I was just so ready for episode 5.
I know. I was thinking. I was just doing a rewatch before this, and I was thinking, as soon as this podcast's over, I'm going to the next episode.
Exactly. But the good news of this means that you can send in your feedback each week. You can send emails to truedetective@thelorehounds.com or head over to the contact page on our website. And there we've got a contact form and a voicemail. Also, we have a Discord, and we've got full channel set up there. We've got separate threads for each episode. Links for all that stuff is in the show notes.
Check us out on Patreon. Subscribers get early and ad-free access to all of our podcasts, but they also get a special customized detective's notebook made by David himself, and boy, is it a delight. People are submitting things to it now. It's becoming a community driven project too. It's beautiful,
which I absolutely love. I mean, Nancy M was sending me stuff, Josh was sending me stuff, Bettina was pointing out that she sent me a photograph. I'm really excited that that's actually what's happening, that it's becoming community thing. That it just makes me super happy. So thank you everyone for your support, and I'm having a fun time doing it too. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's super cool, and thank you, David, for doing it. I'm glad that we have that going on, and join the Patreon if you want to deal with that, because that is good stuff.
Maybe, for other shows in future where there's, some degree of depth and you got to remember characters and all this kind of stuff, we can keep going with this idea. So
you have me inspired. Maybe I'll do it for Rings of Power or something.
Ooh, that would be dope. Yes.
Talk about elf trees and whatnot. Somebody just asked for my elf chart the other day. Maybe I'll convert that.
And the Notion platform is so perfect for it. It's because it's low. You basically don't need any programming. You just know how to use a word processor, and you can do all this crazy stuff. You flick a switch and it's published live on the internet. It's wild.
Well, David, we can chat more about Patreon and our show upcoming coverage in the outro. But for now, we really got to talk about True Detective. So we're done with spoiler-free hot takes. We're doing the full spoiler, the whole kitchen sink. What'd you think, David?
This, on my first watch, I was thinking that, boy, people are probably, I don't know how people are going to react to this episode. I could see fandom breaking in two directions on this. Some people going, where's all the mystery stuff? And then the other side going, loving the character moments, loving the sort of struggles that our main protagonists are having to deal with. Like, these are really dark times, just as the sun is starting to come back up. As I did the outline over the last couple of days, the more that I get into the show, the more I'm just really enamored with the construction, the details, especially the sound effects. I really need to do some more research on who did the sound design for the show, because it is superb. The couple of scenes in this episode really moved me. The scene with Navarro and Tagak, and the first time I watched that, at the end of it, I was really confused by it. But then I really got into it. And then the whole thing with Danvers and Navarro and Julia, it was moving in a lot of places. And then I was worried. I was like, oh, is John going to like this one? I was very nervous for what and then of course we get the weird ending, right? We get the, what the hell just happened? And I think that now we're into it, right? We've got 5 and 6 to go. And I feel like this is going to be analogous to, when you're running down a hill and you can start to feel gravity overtake your ability for self-control.
Yep.
and you just are getting
Yep.
pulled down. And so you're just doing everything you can to keep your arms and your legs moving so that you can, not go tumbling
Do you
down.
go running down a lot of hills, David? I
As a child, I did.
As a child, sure. I was gonna
Yeah.
say, is this like a thing you do in adulthood? Because I can't remember the last time I ran down a hill.
Not as a 50-plus-year-old man. No, I do not. But that's what it feels like that we're heading towards. So I really, fingers crossed, 5 and 6 are going to be an absolute whirlwind of a show, and we're going to really end this. Well, I think just left stunned. I mean, she's been her direction and her writing have been so confident. The editing is so good. The actors are just nailing it. So yeah, another great episode. Not great in the same way of like, oh man, I'm really jazzed and pumped. More like, ooh, this is some heavy stuff, and our characters are really dealing with some things. So,
Hmm.
what'd you
Yeah.
think?
My favorite episode yet. I know you were
Wow.
nervous
What?
about what I would feel about it, but I finally feel like I've got a grip on the characters. I feel like there are stakes for me now.
Yay.
Um, the whole thing with Julia was just heartbreaking. Really
Yes.
made me care about Navarro more than I did before, because Navarro puts on the
Mm,
tough guy thing, but she does have a lot of heart underneath.
totally.
And it showed this episode, right? And it
Yep.
showed in the way that she let the news out too. She goes go with your family with Pryor
Peter.
Jr.
Mm-hmm.
But she tells Danvers right after Danvers goes on a long rant about how there's no heaven or hell or
Right.
afterlife at all, and that was just a beautiful writing, beautiful and heartbreaking writing. Um, I think that the mystery, I thought there was plenty of mystery. I was like, who the heck is this new guy coming in here?
Right. Heiss. Yep.
What is with this new supernatural stuff? We're seeing more entities. I like the seeding of Rose
Mm-hmm.
not being who she portrays herself to be, and it's great. I thought that they did a fantastic job moving those character arcs forward. And for me, I don't care about a mystery unless I care about who it's affecting,
Got it.
and I now care about the characters involved and the
Wow.
characters solving it. And that is so important for me to
Yeah.
move forward with this. So I'm really glad that, I stuck it out, because I've every episode I've gotten a little closer, but this episode I felt propelled me forward several
Nice.
steps of
Nice.
enjoyment. So
That's great.
I really appreciate what they did here.
A note about the writing too. There's a style to her writing which is very real. The way that people are talking with each other isn't
Hmm.
this kind of extemporaneous, fictionalized, well, this is, these two characters, I need to make these two characters say these certain things to
Hmm.
each other. This is all very down to earth. It's very grounded. It feels like, and it sounds like people actually, as we interact in our normal daily lives. And I think that's a really hard thing to pull off, because you have to be extemporaneous for the audience to be included. But at the same time, we know that when a writing is too exposition forward, it sounds off as well. So she's really hitting that fine balance. And then for that to reach through the characters and to have you then attached to the characters is great. That makes me really happy that you're starting to enjoy the show at the same level.
Also, I will say on the writing, she's very good at writing believable dialogue. I don't know. Did she
Yeah,
write
that's what I'm
every
saying.
script? All
I believe so. I don't know if she had a room or not. I would assume that she had a writer's room of some
Okay.
size.
Okay. And beyond what you're saying, I think that the dialogue, the phrasing, and the word choice is really good. I remember people were writing in because I was complaining about, and you were complaining about too, the cursing on Foundation and how it took us
I
out of it.
remember. Yeah, I remember that.
And it's not that I didn't need a curse in it. Like, you can swear in science fiction. It's
Yeah.
not going to completely take me out of it. The Expanse, I think, is a good example of that. But boy, was it awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
every time Salvor Hardin swore, I was like, man, no one talks like this. This is
Right.
not something that ever comes out of anybody's mouth.
Right.
And this finally felt like the way that they go, fuck you, no, fuck you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It feels so real. And I loved it.
When Leah was leaving and just not saying anything,
Yeah.
or when Kayla says, I just want to go to sleep. And then what Peter says, devastating. But like, I've been in those conversations and arguments, and I don't have that much drama in my life, but a normal
Mm-hmm.
amount. And it felt so real, and it felt so believable, the way
Yeah.
that the actors were delivering the lines.
Yeah, and even going back to episode 1, because I think this has been a strength of the series from the beginning. Going back to episode 1, you have that car accident where, they're almost hit by the drunk driver
Yeah.
in the car. And
Stacey
Leah,
Chalmers.
yeah, and right after that, Leah's immediately like, she's 16, by the way, right? Like, she's in her head. She's still in her head in her teenage
Yeah.
drama. And
Right.
I think that was so realistic. And that's what made me think the show had potential. Things like that was these little bits of dialogue that felt like they rang true, right? Like a teenager being hyper focused on their own drama. I think that feels like a real conversation between a stepmom and a stepdaughter.
Right.
So
Exactly.
anyway,
So should we get into
praising the
it?
writing. That's basically what I want to say there.
100% agree. Hard
All right.
agree.
So, quick notes, David?
Yes, quick notes. Sorry, just a couple of things, and then we're going to get right into it. I wanted to ask you, what types of ghosts do you think we have seen so far of the
All
three
three?
types?
I think all three.
You think so?
Yeah.
I was counting them up, and I didn't think we didn't have more than number 2 and number 3. I was trying to think of
What is number 1?
number 1 is the ghosts who miss you.
Oh, I think Travis is that.
Yeah, but he told her something.
All right.
So
All
I
right.
kind of put him in 2.
Okay. All right. I would say the one that needs to tell you something would be the ghost that Navarro saw pointing at the murderer
Mm-hmm.
in that flashback.
Right.
You saw something, and then the woman's ghost was like pointing at him.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
At least that's how I read that scene. Maybe you read it differently, but
Okay.
you couldn't really see what she was pointing at. But I assumed she was being like, "He killed me,"
Right.
kind of thing.
Interesting.
And then the ghosts that want to take you with them, I would say, are the ones under the bed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a
And
pretty easy
I
one.
was trying to think. I couldn't think of a ghost number 1 type. I mean, unless Holden, but is Holden trying to tell something, or is Holden just saying, I miss my mommy? I don't know.
Good question.
Yeah, right in.
Yeah.
Something else that I had been missing, and a number of people on our Discord were talking about it, and then there's a really great Reddit post which I've linked on the Detectives Journal, but I also threw a link in the episode 3 channel on the Discord, was that Twist and Shout, the music, various incantations of the music are all over the season and all over these episodes. And somebody went through and posted on Reddit a really great breakdown of where they all are. And speaking of ghosts, I don't wonder, this is my theory going forward on this right now, is that Twist and Shout is the spirit world's way of trying to contact Liz, but she's not receptive to other communication. And so music is being used to try to, speak to her in some way.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're trying to say in general with Twist
With
and
the
Shout.
Twist and Shout.
It
That's the only thing I
seems
can
like
think
a
of.
very shallow song, which is why it's bizarre to me. But maybe I think you're right. I think maybe there's some kind of deeper meaning that we just don't know right now, because she was kind of reacting to it, right, at some point when it was on in Salal.
Yeah. And then when apparently Wheeler was whistling that when they busted into his cabin. And then the refrigerator, remember when she was putting the turkey away and Leah came back, people have said that that's what that she was hearing, like the refrigerator was humming that tune. And there's several other places where snippets of it are heard. And
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's a shallow song. Not shallow in the sense that it's not a Billie Eilish song about,
it's like Go Dance, right?
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
the song is.
Yeah, literally. And so why is this thing? We thought at first that it was just this weird trigger for her trauma, but it's showing up in different ways.
You've got this note about the color teal.
Yeah, I heard this. I heard Joanna Robinson talking about this on the Ringer podcast. They apparently the color teal is all over the season, rooms, clothing, lighting effects, and some people have been digging into color theory. It's one of the clue areas that I've not gone down. One of the clue rabbit holes I've not gone down. So I didn't know if anybody else had thoughts on the color teal, but I wanted to encourage folks to write in if they had some things that they wanted to discuss around the color schemes that we're seeing.
I'm going to call that one as a Markley, but sure.
Well, and then this gets in this whole semiotics, which is a whole other thing. We need to talk when we get to Leah. We got to talk about lighthouses.
Okay. Yeah, I meant more like I'm thinking like maybe it's just aesthetic of nighttime, right?
Mm-hmm.
This goes well with the blue lens. I don't know. I mean, maybe it does mean something, but sometimes a color is just a color. And sometimes
Sometimes
a
it
Markley
is.
is just a Markley.
That's the fun. That's the fun of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, David, shall we scene by scene?
We shall. Okay.
We've got a cold open on this episode. We go from the static of the HBO logo to Liz's white noise machine. Danvers can't sleep, so she reviews the Annie K video. She checks on Leah. Can I tell you the funny thing when I started this episode?
Yeah.
I had the baby monitor on in the background, which there's a fan. There's a fan in my kid's room.
Uh-huh.
And so there's always a hiss coming from the baby monitor. And I'm like, man, this monitor is really loud. Like, why can't I'm lowering the volume and it's not lowering, and it was just the show. It was
That's
just continuing.
awesome. That's awesome. So again, it's this diegetic, non-diegetic music that's transitioning the boundaries between our physical reality and the show's reality, and then the show's reality.
I don't want to live in the show's reality. It seems very awful.
Yeah. Not nice right now. So, and then that's in a number of other places where we have music bleeding over between two different scenes or multiple scenes. It's really great.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't help but think when she goes in to check on Leah, what parent hasn't done this same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go in and sort of, adjust, your child's totally asleep and you kind of tuck them in a little bit or move their
You just
hair.
need to do something to feel like you parented.
Exactly.
It's for you. It's not for them.
Completely. And, it goes to the depths of Liz's feelings towards her stepdaughter, which makes it even more tragic what happens later on, I think.
I think that, and, to Leah's credit, I don't think that Liz has really done a good job of expressing her love for
She's
Leah.
done a terrible job.
One might say that she's withholding.
Yes.
And if she would just act like this when Leah's awake, Leah might not feel the need to find a sense of belonging elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that she shouldn't go with her, her roots and try to, discover more about her birth culture. But I will say, she might be getting in league with some iffy people that are within that community just to feel like she belongs, right? The people, there's a lot of people who are very inviting because they know that what they're doing is unpopular.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something where, they're going and tagging the mine. And sure, that does kind of send a message, but also Leah clearly did it in a way that was
rebellious,
easily caught.
right at the front door.
Right.
Not smart.
Oh, security's not going to drive past the front door. Okay.
Right. No, not like there's probably not security around that place regularly, given the fact that they're attracting this kind of attention. So, yeah. I mean, all kids are going to rebel, right? And they're going to try to push away and differentiate. That's normal.
Yeah.
But doing it in a way that doesn't end up with a entry on your criminal record. Like you don't have a criminal record database, entry on yourself.
Right. And, that's, we should really talk about it when we get there. But I will say that, that's the difference oftentimes between kids who end up with a criminal record and kids who don't, is sometimes a kid does something stupid, but their parent fights for them, just like Danvers fought for Leah here.
Even though Leah doesn't see it.
And right, exactly. But my point is, having an advocate is such a powerful thing for a
Yeah.
child. And
Yeah.
that's something that you can't fix with school budgets. You can't fix with, free lunch or anything like that. Like you need that to come from the home. You need an
Mm.
advocate from the home. And it's so sad that Leah doesn't see what she has there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sad that Danvers can't be a more functional parent at the same
Yeah,
time,
exactly.
right?
It's not
It's
Leah's
tragic.
fault that she doesn't see it. I'm saying
Yeah. Yeah.
it's tragic
It's
that she does
tragic.
not see it.
Yeah. Something that we haven't talked about, and I don't hear a lot of talk about because we're all focused on the mystery and what's going to happen. Is it going to be rational or paranormal? Is the absence of Leah's mother and the absence of Peter's mother. We have key women in key people's lives just gone. Navarro's mother. So
Well,
that makes
what's that
me,
trope? The woman always dies.
yeah. Well, and she's using it in this way. Lopez is, I think, in this way, in this broader contextual way, saying, "Okay, world, misogyny, violence against women, a lot of women who are missing and murdered. What does that do to us as a society? What does that do to our social bonds and our connectivity with each other? Of course, tragedies are going to happen and people get ill and car crashes happen, that kind of stuff. Uh, but this idea that there's a whole just all of these parents are just gone, that messes with people really badly, really badly. And I think that's part of this larger stakes of what's happening in the real world, where the show is sort of putting a
Yeah,
spotlight on that.
yeah, yeah. And this show has done a great job of highlighting violence against women, violence against targeted communities, indigenous communities in particular. And it's a great thing that they're doing. It's a lot of sad stuff, but
Yeah,
it's good subjects that are not talked about enough.
right.
But we are going to wait till later to talk about the Annie K video because there's more lore to be had on that, I
Well,
think.
okay, we'll talk. All right, we'll talk about it later because we got to talk about the fossilized remains that are there in the ice.
Yeah, let's talk about that when we get to Mr. Maps.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Yeah, that works. That's good.
All right, the title card gives us the date of December 24th, the seventh day of night. Danvers is driving to work, and Peter informs her that the bodies are being packed up to be shipped to Anchorage. She encounters Jules, who's having an episode. Boy, the minute that Jules was stripping in the street,
Mm-hmm.
I had a feeling
Bad feeling.
that was the end of her this episode.
Right.
And I think we could have all predicted something terrible was going to happen to her even earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this was her downfall already.
Yeah, you could see it coming. And again, Danvers with her maternal instincts kicking in the
Right.
crisis moment. In the crisis moment, she's there. She's spot on. She knows how to deal with it. She's, I mean, that's the first thing that she does when they almost get hit by Stacey Chalmers. She checks on Leah. Are you okay? You're not hurt. Okay. I'm looking at you. You're not bleeding anything. You're fine. You're fine. It's okay. Like she's good in that kind of situation.
Yeah.
She's bad
Yep.
with all of the emotional stuff.
A lot of people are good in crisis response, but are anxious people overall.
Right. I mean, she gets an elbow to the face and is like cool about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And she's being a good cop there. It's
Yeah.
hopefully she can be a good cop in other situations, and I don't know if that's always true. After the opening credits, Navarro comforts her sister at the station. Danvers and Navarro agree they need to discuss the video. Peter then watches the crew from Anchorage packing up at the ice rink, and Evangeline takes Jules to the lighthouse.
So Peter watching the corpsicle getting packed up. I couldn't help but think that he might have had some sad boy vibes going on here. This is probably the biggest case he's ever going to work in his life. He's going to have other stuff, right? As a in his professional career, other things will happen and big things will happen, but not like this. This is it.
Well, I think that the doctor is is kind of scouting him for state police force now, for
The
like
doctor.
the headquarters.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
making a joke,
Oh,
like
Ted.
Christopher
Right.
Eccleston. Yeah, Ted.
Yeah.
I think
Right. Because he
he's
says that
considering
boy's going
bringing
to
him
be
on as
good.
a companion. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
He's like, oh, that kid has a lot of potential, and you can see Danvers kind of get a little protective of him. I think
That's true. Yeah. I didn't
she's
think
like,
about
this is
that.
my guy, leave him alone.
Yeah. Yeah. This is my protege.
Yeah,
This is my protege to the point that he's going to ruin his family relationships because that's the model I'm teaching him.
yeah. Pete should transfer. I support that. Get away. First of all, get away from this town that's falling apart.
But Kayla's family's all there.
That's true.
That's
All
her
right. All right.
community, right? So
Well, all right. Well, I take it back. I take it back.
it's tragic. It's tragic. This is the tragedy of the scenario, of the situation.
Right. And
So,
and probably being a police officer is one of the only well-paying jobs in this town.
that's a good point.
And that's even with police officers not really making all that much in a town like this anyway.
In general, yeah. Really noticed the camaraderie that Liz and Angie had together in this scene. There's so much that's pulling them together, and Lopez talks about this, the respect and an admiration that they have for each other, and that Liz can empathize and identify with Evangeline at the same time. And when it's offered, Angie's like, thank you. Like, I appreciate it. You looked after my little sister. That's huge. That's so important to me.
Yeah.
And so seeing the healthy, normal part of their relationship was a nice little moment, which actually then, now that I think about it, really sets up for later, right? Because we have this nice, very sane moment when things are going to get insane down the road.
Indeed. All right. At the station, Peter has a lead on medical records regarding similar injuries. Danvers and Ted Connolly talk. They flirt in their own weird way. And there was the fuck you, right?
Yes, exactly.
Fuck you, fuck you. That felt really natural. It's
Very.
funny. I think that Christopher Eccleston has been doing an amazing job with his American accent.
Mm-hmm.
This was the one scene I was listening to him very closely. There were a few vowels that I was like, that's turning a little Northern English there. Just a few vowels. I think it's in he has these exaggerated R's,
Okay,
and that's great. But that he it's the subconscious things that you got to worry about. But I mean, overall, I think one of the better American accents by an Englishman, second only to Gregory House.
Right. Yes, fair enough. We learned that Ted's going to run for mayor. That's exciting.
I think she's just busting his balls.
No, he's running for mayor.
Oh, he is?
It's happening. Yeah, for sure. Why would he do the teeth whitening thing?
I don't think mayor. Why mayor of Anchorage?
Why not? That's where he's going. Yeah.
All right.
That's what he wants
to do. Good for him. Is that like an Eric Adams joke? Like mayor of New York City, who was a police officer?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. Well, it's a pathway. It's a valid pathway. Pathway.
Yeah.
And when we learned that he was not a good police officer as Danvers was, so and that's probably why he's chief, because he's political, right? He's a political animal, more of a political animal than he is a detective, or a police officer, law enforcement.
But that's a skill, right? Like, okay, I'm gonna bring in something that has a political connotation, but I'm not gonna take a stance on it, so don't worry. But like, okay, look at what's happening at the border right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have Texas and the federal government fighting over who can control the border down there.
Piece of it, right?
Well, there are definitely places for policy experts and places for enforcers there. What you need negotiating that are not people on the ground. You need people who can work with each other and who can get along with each other.
Sure.
And who can be interpersonal and say, like, what can we agree on? And I think Ted's better at that than Liz. Liz is just like
better.
Liz is she's a fine-tuned instrument. I'm not going to say she's a blunt instrument, but it's kind of like taking a fine-tuned instrument and hacking away at something with it. Whereas I think Navarro is kind of the blunt force sometimes.
I would almost go to like a savant-like quality with Danvers and her investigative skills. To somebody who's say a mathematician or theoretical physicist or a music conductor. I'm thinking of the movie Tar, things like this, where somebody is so powerfully moved by what they work on, and we're all idiots because we don't get it on the same level that they do. Right? That there's some sort of ego identity thing going on there. And if she's a really good investigator, everybody else is shit at their jobs. Right? It's like that.
Mm-hmm.
She's so into what she does that she can't see that anybody else can't be as good as she is. It's
Right.
very
I think.
Sherlock. Very
I think.
Sherlock.
Yeah, but I think the point is like Sherlock needs Watson
Correct.
because Watson is the one who makes sure that people don't kick his fucking ass, and Watson is the one who makes sure that the police chief keeps coming back.
Right.
Because you piss enough people off, doesn't matter how good you are.
So she's a Sherlock without a Watson.
Or is Pete her Watson?
Yes.
I don't think Navarro can be her Watson.
Position.
She throws a few too many punches.
Right, and Navarro is too ego strong in her own right to,
right.
So you've got two alphas in there to go to the alpha beta thing, but you've got two top dominants. They can't be in that position. It's too much friction. I love the humor when Connolly goes to water the dead plant that he smells the bottle first.
Yeah.
That was cute.
Oh, you're going to take my office too?
Yeah.
I love, they really are very good at busting each other. And I really like that about the dialogue in all these scenes between those two and also her and Navarro.
And the levity, just having a little bit of levity in this story really makes the whole story go down a much easier.
You definitely needed it in this episode.
Yeah.
Dark episode. Speaking of dark, Jules checks in at the community center since she has the darkest plot line in this whole thing. Evangeline promises to visit for Christmas.
So this is the last time they see each other.
Yeah.
And as the scene ends, the way that the camera pulls back down the hall is exactly like it does in the end of episode 3 when they're all watching the Annie K video.
Mm-hmm.
The way that it's pulling back, it's the same camera movement sort of receding down this hallway. And I can't help but also feel like this goes with this whole water motif that we have in the opening credit scene. And of course, what happens with Jules is that the drowning person is receding from the person on the surface. So Navarro's there standing at the end of the hall, and we're the drowning person, sinking deeper and deeper, further and further away. And that camera movement really accentuates that emotional sense of something's happening here.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as she checked in, I was like, this isn't going to go well. No. Whatever. I didn't think she was going to die like that. I thought something was going to happen in her room or something, but it was shocking the way she died too.
Really touching scene. The great acting by both of these actors. I'm just so impressed by what Callie Reese is able to deliver. We've remarked on it multiple times, and I'm going to keep remarking on it because it is so good.
Yeah. So at the station, Peter has a Christmas present for Danvers. It's Otis Heiss. What a delight. He's a German national, and he has the same kinds of injuries as the Salal scientist had. Danvers makes Peter work on Christmas Eve. And
I really hate you.
He says, I really hate you. But, it's playful, but he means it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's... Yeah. I think... Here's the thing that's really heartbreaking about Peter is he's going to look back after his marriage fails and be like, I could always get another job, but I had a family. And that's really heartbreaking because he's making and I think a lot of people make this mistake, right? They go workaholic. They go, I'm providing for my family. I have to dedicate myself to work, and they don't set appropriate boundaries. And then they lose their family because they're too withdrawn.
And they realize that, whoops, bad decision.
Right. No one ever woke up on their deathbed wondering how much more money they could have made, right?
I think, too, this accentuates what I was saying before. This is going to be, maybe Peter will work bigger cases, but this is going to be one of the most interesting cases that he will ever have worked. Yeah. And to sacrifice his family I don't know if you feel this way about parenthood, but for me, being a parent is probably the best thing I will have ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Just shepherding another
Yeah.
life forward in the world and teaching and supporting and loving and having the two-way connection. There's um, there's a lot of things that I've got to do in my day-to-day life, but none of it would I ever want to sacrifice the relationship that I have with our daughter.
Yeah.
No way, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'm proud of what I do at work, but so much of my joy comes from just getting home in the evening and playing Monster Dad with my daughter, right? Just
Mhm.
just these moments of joy, making her giggle. And my son will get there, but he doesn't have much of a personality yet because he's one. But he'll
Still a
he'll get
blob.
there. He'll get
Right.
there. But yeah, he's really wasting his kid's childhood, and that sucks.
So the German national had no records except for his criminal record, which is the
Hmm.
same as Oliver Tagaq.
Right.
So,
Right.
John, ask me the question.
I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm not Danvers.
Who had his records scrubbed?
Oh.
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 Who has the juice
Oh.
to be able to scrub records to the level of
It's
social
got the
security
juice. Do you know
numbers?
what I'm singing?
I don't know if I know that one.
You didn't know the corn song from TikTok?
No. That one I
There was some
missed.
kid who said he really liked corn because it's
Uh-huh.
got the juice. And somebody made a song about it, like, it's got the juice. It's all about corn.
Okay.
Okay,
No, I
anyway.
missed it.
You said
Anyway.
it got the juice. It's fine. It's fine.
Right, right.
Hopefully someone got a
Someone
laugh
out
out
there
of that
got
on
it.
their drive to work,
Somebody did. But yeah, so
Yeah.
who has the muscle, who has the reach, who has the know-how to scrub not only Heiss's records but Tagaq's records, and who else? Who else have they done this on?
I mean,
So
maybe it's connected to the
conspiracy.
mining stuff. Like they have
It's
connections
connected to
somewhere. It's
Salal.
what
It's
did what
connected
did
to
what did
yeah.
Lorraine from Fargo say? Like, call me the big orange idiot and get me something from my campaign donations.
Right.
Maybe there's somebody like that. I could see the mining rig lady from this episode
No.
doing that.
Sorry. This is the Salal research station. This is I've got to go to the
No, I'm saying if she's involved with these
nope.
murders or whatnot.
It's
That was Salal?
this is Salal. Because remember, Heiss is working for Salal. Tagaq is working for Salal. So this is NC Global Strategies, is the holding company, which is funded by Tuttle United, which is part of the Tuttle Ministries from season 1. So this
Okay.
international pedophilia criminal weirdo ring that is involved in nefarious shit, and they're the ones that are the deep pockets behind Salal.
So the Tuttles, they have the resources to call up, as Lorraine would say, the Orange Man and get the records
So
erased. You think?
there are season 1 stands out there who bristle at the idea that the Tuttles were no bigger than a regional concern. And then there are other folks who are like, but look, if you go back to season 1, and I won't spoil anything directly, but indirectly, even saying the name Tuttle in the other episode is a bit of a season 1 spoiler. It's no big deal because it's about nefarious conspiracies, right? The very noir story. There's like weirder, bigger concerns moving and shaping the world, right? So if you think that there is a bigger conspiracy out there that, and if we look at the Tuttles and how big they were down there, what's to say that they didn't grow beyond their region? What's to say that they didn't get connected? Big money gets connected around in the world in places that we don't know. I mean, I don't want to sound too tinfoil, but you know, money looks for other money, and they make connections. So I totally think that this is a something deeper with the Salal, whoever is behind Salal.
Mm. All right. All right. Let's put a pin in it.
Okay. My head's getting a little hot. The tinfoil is keeping all the cerebral heat in.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Danvers and Navarro talk by phone about the video.
So there are no caves nearby, and Annie's body was moved. And we can talk about fossils because they say, oh, isn't there's something weird, fossily, bony in that.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about it when she goes back, when we get, I guess, to Bryce.
To Map Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also the thing later that comes up with the power shutting off, but we could save that for then too.
Right. Was that in another? Yeah, that's when she's drunk.
Yeah, that's later.
She calls her on Christmas Eve.
The power's turning off. It's not great. It's not a great look. I love how everyone gets her right away. Everyone is like, are you drunk?
They're so not used to interacting with her that way that they can tell something's so totally off. And so they're like, wait a minute, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. In vain, Hank waits at the airport. I've seen this episode of 90 Day Fiancé too.
Oh,
this is every week I make that joke, but every week it gets more true. So I have to keep making it.
Right. I love the psych out with the stewardess. He thinks like, oh, wow, this is her. Nope. It's the stewardess just closing up the back door. It was so talk about deeply embarrassing for a man with such with such a puffed up sense of pride and ego, you know?
Yeah, you know, I every season of 90 Day Fiancé, I kind of I talk about with my wife like the bingo card of like things that people say in a particular season, and one of them is, "Did you send them money?" Somebody always asks that.
Yes.
Every time. Did you send them money? Are
and
they just
Peter
here for a green card?
Yeah.
What are her intentions? Yeah.
Oh man. It's just in the way that John Hawkes is playing this character, you can just feel his stomach drop inside knowing that he's just been made a complete buffoon of. And he's been swanning around all this time and sending all these text messages and oh my gosh, just the internal embarrassment.
I'd move across the world from embarrassment for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. He definitely got. You ever watch 30 Rock, where Tracy Morgan says, "What's the past tense of scammed? Is it scrumped?" I think he just got scrumped.
I don't know if I saw that one, but that's funny. That sounds like a very something he would say.
It's a Tracy Morgan thing. Yeah. So I think Hank got scrumped.
He got scrumped.
Danvers and Navarro drive and talk. We learn about Danvers' past and the death of her mother. They go to Bryce's house on Christmas Eve to get help with the ice cave and fossils and learn about the heist connection. Can I just ask you, what did Danvers expect out of this interaction?
Again, the humor. You should maybe stand in front of me. She's like, what? And then when Navarro figures it out, she's just like, you did what? So good. It's a very, just a great comedy duo style minute. It was priceless. And the wife's reaction was priceless as well. She was
like, you got to be fucking kidding me, you know?
Are you serious? Christmas Eve?
She just can't let it go. She just can't let it go. And in fairness, they are dealing with a murder. There is a suspect at large.
Yep.
It's a serious situation. However, she is bothering everyone else and deputizing everyone else while going home and getting drunk.
Yeah.
I was shocked that Pete was not pissed at her when, he goes, was she drunk? And she goes out of her mind. And Pete laughs about it. And I was like, wow, that was an interesting reaction. I would be mad that I had to leave my family because my boss got drunk.
Yeah, seriously. Okay. Monodites. This is the family of whale species that umbrella over narwhals and beluga whales. Sorry, I forgot the name beluga whale for a second. And so this is a species that's common in this area. There is recently a new species that's actually called Monodites.
Mm.
specifically, where is it here? Bohaska Kaya monodites, which is it's like recently discovered, but it was actually
Mm.
that's somewhere else. It's actually on the East Coast, I believe. But anyway, so this is a real thing. So this spine and this head, I took a picture and put it in the detective's journal, and we'll have that in for episode 4 stuff. They're clearly are signaling something that has to do with this thing. And I think it was Duve71 who was on our Discord and posted something about the star-shaped wound marks on Annie K, and he looked up a where is it? He looked up something that was an interesting theory. Here it is. Another new fossil of a mosasaur. Oh God, I can't pronounce this. With
Don't even
bizarre
try.
screwdriver teeth found in Morocco. So again, star-shaped puncture wounds.
Mm.
This thing has like ridges all the way around it, so it makes a star-shaped thing. So
Are we dealing with a dinosaur here?
yeah, this is a really weird turn for this whole storyline. What the hell does fossils have to do with this murder of these
Mm-hmm.
scientists?
Well, if there is a dinosaur in the world, I'm glad it's very far away from where I live and across many land masses.
So the Brooks Range is a range of mountains that sort of goes west to east or east to west, depending on your orientation, across the top end of Alaska and sort of separates the north slope from the southern part. And from where I can guess, Enos is relative to the real map of Alaska. The Brooks Range is right behind Enos, so you just go inland a little ways, and then you're at the far western end of the Brooks Range, as I understand it. And I'll put a
Okay.
map in the Detective's Journal as well with this for this episode. So
Well, we know Ennis is at the end of the world.
yes, it is.
It is at least at the end of the world.
Love this when he stands up and bangs his head on the lamp. Again, more comedy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a spooky scene, honestly, to have him consider it. And interesting that they have to wait to go into those caves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Puts another timeline on, since we had the timeline of the bodies melting. Now we have the timeline of when can we get an expert, because it's Christmas. I think it was really smart to put this storyline during Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
because one, you have the family drama, and
Right.
two, you
Good.
have this lack of resources. You're
Point.
depriving someone of resources for a reason, which is always a really hard line to
Mm-hmm.
tote. Yeah.
And it ramps it up when you it's like we've got to chase this suspect down. It's Christmas Eve. We've got to keep the case moving forward, right?
Yeah.
It works really well. It creates a lot of dramatic tension for sure.
Yeah. At the lighthouse, Jules sees an orange roll out from under her bed and then sees a vision of her mother under the bed. She freaks out. I know we have
Oranges,
feedback on oranges.
yes.
I want to save it for then, but
fine. But the whole thing of you see an orange, somebody's going to die, right? So, and it ties in. I when we get to the feedback, we'll talk about it, but it's not displaced in the story given the importance of oranges. So
yeah. And boy, did she die. So I guess the orange thing worked out. It was a pretty good jump scare, honestly. I'm not a big fan of jump scares.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think they're kind of lazy, but they did pretty well with it.
And you're a seasoned veteran of the jump scare, so if it worked on you, that's saying something.
I mean, I didn't jump, but but I was like, oh, that was spooky.
You're not complaining, so that's
it was good. It was a good one. Good
awesome
work. Hank swings by the station from the airport to have a quick drink.
As you do at the office,
Right, of course. You want me to bring this baby over? Isn't that what he says?
Yeah, that's right.
This girl over?
She's got some life left in her.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
He and Peter have an awkward conversation about Alina not showing up. And this is where I said, he does the 90 Day Fiancé bingo card of, did you send her money?
Mm-hmm.
I think the phones are down. It's... that was... as the way I don't think we've ever seen this guy smile before.
Right.
And this scene, he's so outwardly jubilant while
Mm,
being dead-eyed that it's so spooky, honestly. This guy's unhinged.
yeah.
And I think I'm trying to think of like why they put this plot line in, right? Why they even put in this Russian bride plot line for
Interesting.
the overall
Yeah. Good
story.
question.
Yeah, see, I'm
Good
asking the right
question. There you
questions here.
go. Yeah.
And I think it's two reasons. One is to give us the clue about the money. He's still got
Mm-hmm.
some money.
Uh-huh.
But the second is get, you talk about ramping up pressure, get Hank into a situation, into a mental state where he's going to do something dangerous and stupid.
Good call. That's a good call. Yeah, he's gonna be triggered in his own way and
Hmm.
react, and that's gonna affect whatever else is going on. I like
Look
it.
at all our main characters right now. He's got his thing. Peter is having marital problems, falling apart. Danvers is drunk off her ass because her daughter hates her.
Right. Her daughter
And
leaves, and then her and her boss lover have a huge fight.
right. And Navarro just lost her sister.
Yeah, and then got into a career-ending brawl with a former, somebody that she had arrested.
Yeah. Well, I doubt he's going to report it because then he
Well, we'll
will be
talk
on
about
the
it when we
radar
get there.
again. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Anyway,
everybody's a
certainly an
mess.
abuse of power though.
Yeah.
But yeah, the point is I think everyone is being intentionally ratcheted up in their stress level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was saying before about that running down the hill kind of thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
all coming to a head, and we're just going to have this, avalanche of circumstances and people doing stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember something I wanted to say back with Bryce and the caves and the Brooks
Mm-hmm.
Range stuff. There is a scene in the opening credits of an equipment room sort of bathed in red light. And one of the things that they are doing at the end of every episode you have the opening credits, and then the final shot of the opening credits where it basically says, executive producer, written by whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Issa Lopez, that shot is different every time.
Hmm.
One of the times it was the cafeteria at Salal. One of the times it was Kavik's ice shanty. There is one of the times where it's this red, this equipment room where there's like parkas and ice axes and all kinds of stuff, and it's sort of it's lit by like a red light, like a light that you would have in a dark room or in a place where you're about to transition light, right? So that your eyes are, used to a lower wavelength.
Hmm.
So I think that's going to come into play in the Brooks Range when they get to the Brooks Range stuff. So anyway, sorry, carrying
No,
forward.
no, no. I think it's a good thought and good eye that you're catching those differences between the title screens. I did not notice at all.
I have to, when I started noticing that, I tried to take some pictures of it, but I can only take pictures on certain screens at certain times of the day, because otherwise I get my own reflection in the screen. So I
Do
gotta,
you
I
know
gotta
they
redo
have
that.
these screeners locked down, and I wanted to watch it on my TV, but there's no screener app for my TV.
I thought there was.
And
Well, it
well,
depends on what.
I was just going through my LG TV. I didn't go on any Fire Stick or anything like
Oh,
that.
okay. I see what. Yeah.
That might be the issue, but
Yeah. Cause I think they have
so
it for like Roku and Apple TV and stuff.
okay, okay, maybe I gotta set up my Fire TV again. But anyway, my point is, I tried to share screen my laptop to
Yes.
my TV,
Uh
and it was like, no, you're not doing that. And I was like,
huh.
wow.
Yeah.
Even local sharing, I can't share it on my screen just so I can watch it on a different screen. I'd have to get an HDMI.
Yeah. To output. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. All right, let's move on to Navarro heading out to Rose's house for some Christmas cheer. We learn that Rose was a university professor. A disenchanted one, I'd say.
Yeah. Very much so. You are familiar with John Lithgow,
Yes.
the actor? She was channeling John Lithgow in this scene. She totally. I was having a hard time going, wait, isn't that John Lithgow? So I don't know what was up with that.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was great in the scene. But it almost felt like a different character than the
Yeah.
ones that we had
Yes.
before. When
Exactly.
she's outside, maybe because she hasn't seen a dead person in long enough. Um, I don't know.
Quiet except for all the
I don't know.
dead, she says.
Yeah. Great line there.
Yeah.
Great
Interesting
line.
that we just have this little touch scene with her, and we have yet to, she hasn't been, uh, she's had one major function in this plot, but we haven't had a lot yet else with her other than being a kind of, what's the way I want to say this, like docent for us, the audience, to explain the rules of the dead kind of stuff. Other than that, I don't know. She hasn't had much consequence in the story. So will be interesting
Yeah.
to see if she plays a more of a role in the next 2 episodes.
Yeah. All right. As far as what she says too, I wonder what she was a professor of. Very serious things that she's very dismissive about. But I feel
Yeah.
like that's going to come into play at some point.
Okay.
Because otherwise it's a weird backstory to just throw in there.
It
And
is.
actually,
Yeah.
if we're talking about the quality of the dialogue, this was the one scene I thought suffered a little bit
Mm.
because it felt like Navarro going, "So tell me your backstory, character. We've never talked about your backstory.
Right.
What is it?"
Good point.
Yeah. Show me your character sheet, Rose. Anyway, Danvers gets a call from McKittrick. Is that how I say it?
McKittrick.
McKittrick, sorry. Leah is being held by mine security for defacing the building. Danvers convinces McKittrick to not press charges.
So one problem I did have with this scene, sort of on a realism scale, was Leah's a minor and the security is a private guard.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot do that. With the chief of police and the stepmother is standing right there. You cannot hold the child. You'd have no legal right to hold that child in that truck. A minor, like that is like a big no.
Yeah,
Let alone the
yeah,
regardless of chief of police status stuff. And that,
right.
when McKittrick does her little like, oh, let her out. I was like, dang,
Yeah,
uh,
there's an arguable like shopkeeper's privilege kind of thing until Danvers gets there. But as soon as she gets there, she should be released to the police. Then
exactly.
again, her daughter being involved, she probably should not have gone there personally, but instead sent Peter
Another
away.
officer. Exactly.
Right? Like
Yep.
there's a
Somebody
conflict of
else.
interest there.
Your second of command, who is Hank Pryor.
Yeah.
Not great.
Yeah. Yeah. Something that that really struck me was how much better fitted the security was than Danvers. Like they seemed like a more legitimate force than the police in this town. And I think that was intentional. I think that Issa Lopez here is trying to demonstrate like money buys private security. Money buys big guys in Suburbans.
And where a town has to go through a local police force, we've got it's government, right? We have to have transparency. We have to have an understanding of where money's being spent to prevent corruption and that kind of stuff. So,
yeah,
for sure.
And so
same
there's
like
two things.
Fargo.
Yeah, and
right?
there's a great sort of juxtaposition here of low-level police corruption, right? It's her asking for a favor for her daughter, right?
Yeah.
But also kind of an abuse of power of the the victim here, the mine. And I think that what I'm trying to say here is both sides are a little bit wrong.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Like she should face consequences, but it would be nice for her to not have a criminal record just to start off life with.
Right.
And
For sure.
she did the right thing by just calling Danvers directly, but or maybe she didn't. Maybe Danvers got a call from emergency services. Do we know that?
It was McKittrick. It
definitely was okay.
Yeah, it was definitely her. Yeah.
But yeah, it's not great. And now Danvers owes McKittrick a favor.
Kind of, yeah. I love the line that McKittrick says, you talking about what's unacceptable. Like, you stooped my husband and you want to talk about what's unacceptable behavior on the part of your stepdaughter? That's rich.
Yeah.
So, did you notice that the other cars that were parked in the lot there were Teslas?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That seems actually really impractical for
totally impractical, right?
Because there's whole issues with batteries in the cold.
Yeah. And
That's
then like
not okay.
a bunch of places that got a lot of cold weather not too long ago, in cars, wet and then freezing, and then cars that sometimes form, an ice shell, and then the Tesla little door handles can't pop out of the door because
Yeah.
they're all iced
Yeah.
over. So,
Yeah. Fun. Super fun. One other note I just had here. You can't force the police to press charges. I think everyone knows that. But
mhm.
she's like, well, you don't get to decide if charges are pressed. It's like, actually, law enforcement does. I guess law enforcement doesn't directly. It's really the DA, but it's really the prosecutor's office. But it's just
Yep,
funny how
yep.
she's like, no, I'm pressing charges. It's like, you as the victim don't press charges. The
Right, the state
prosecutors
would
press charges.
criminally, yeah,
Right. And
unless you wanted to pursue it civilly, right?
right.
And then
And
that's a whole different thing.
realistically, probably Leah would end up in like a first time offenders program and probably get
Mhm.
like probation or something like that. So
Exactly.
hopefully, we'll see. We'll see. I guess we won't see. Anyway, I think we should take a break, David, because we've got a nice little transition here with the Billie Eilish song. We've got probably about half the episode left, and I think it's time we take a breather. And we're back. So back to the scene by scene recap. The next few scenes are bridged together by the song Everybody Dies by Billie Eilish. I'm going to try to combine a few scenes here just because there's a few character beats that we don't necessarily need to go through in detail. But the first couple scenes are actually pretty meaningful, so let's do those ones in detail. After leaving Rose's, Evangeline calls Jules to check in, but we see Jules is not in her room. She's out at the shipwreck, and we watch her remove all of her clothing and walk out onto the ice.
Pretty heavy stuff here. I want to make a quick mention about the Billie Eilish song, which is "Everybody Dies," and the lyrics are pretty somber, and the conversation around the song and the verses, the different verses, um, that at least in the first verse, this idea that Eilish is commenting on sort of mass dishonesty and how we teach each other to lie to each other. I think is really interesting. We tell each other lies. Sometimes we try to make it feel like we might be right. We might not be alone. It's almost like this song was commissioned, and like they actually commissioned Billie Eilish to write a song about this season. That is like so on point for so much, because Jules has been lying all the time about, whether she's actually going to be able to deal with this. Danvers is lying to everybody. Navarro is lying by the act of withholding, right, and not, sharing herself with people. It's just a really poignant song, and there's a whole, if you do some Google searches or whatever, maybe I'll post this on the Detectives Journal as well. There's a nice analysis that I found on a website of what this song means. It's got a lot of connectivity to this episode and to the season overall.
Cool. Well, I appreciate the deep dive on the lyrics.
Yeah.
So as far as this Jules
Yeah.
scene, can I first praise, because again, I'm bringing up old grievances of people said we didn't like cursing in science fiction, and I would say this is slightly science fiction, although
Mm-hmm.
it's leaning more into the mystery, of course. um there was another thing about like sex scenes, right? I think somebody called me a prude when it comes to fantasy and sci-fi, which fair, if you want, call me what you want. But the point is, I actually thought this was a very tasteful nude scene, which
Mm-hmm.
was, you know, it's making her vulnerable and it's mirroring the deaths of Salal. And so it actually meant something. There was a reason for her to be naked here. And I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to praise Issa Lopez for doing it right.
And I think this idea that she's letting go of her earthly possessions. Did you notice that she folded and stacked her clothing?
Oh yeah, she did. I didn't connect it till you said that.
So
Wow.
again, I think it goes back to some kind of ritualism, if I can say it that
Hmm.
way, that if and I don't know what the traditions are for people who live in and around the Arctic. I'm aware of that there is something to be involved in, like, well, when it's time to die, you just walk out on the ice and you let yourself be taken back by nature. I
Mm.
know in some tropical regions in Africa, that is also a thing, like you just get to a certain age, you just walk out and you let the hyenas take you. Right. And
Mm.
you save yourself. It's, you get to an end point of your life where quality of life is over, and you make a decision for yourself. Right.
I'll be honest,
So
I don't think Jules was at peace here.
no,
I don't think Jules wanted to die.
I think she was exhausted and tired, and she just couldn't handle it anymore.
Mm.
So
It's very
uh,
sad.
it is, and it's a tough scene. So I hope people who are watching the show and listening to this podcast, make sure you take care of yourself too, if this is something that is affecting.
Definitely.
So
Definitely. And it's really heartbreaking how she calls Navarro and says, I love you. And
yeah,
he gives her one last. It's heartbreaking.
yeah.
I mean, it was very effective. It was a very effective scene.
And Navarro even had said in a previous conversation, don't you just want to sometimes just let go of everything and just walk away? And Jules literally does that in this scene.
Yeah.
So I want to talk really quickly about some semiotics. It's a big,
Semiotic away.
yes, it's a big fancy word, which basically is the study of signs and symbols and meanings thereof, beyond just like, oh, somebody walks into a room with a white coat and a stethoscope, right? That's interpreted meaning that person is a medical professional of some kind. Okay, so like surface level stuff, we do that all the time. A badge, a uniform, a hard hat, with a tool belt and a ladder, right? We can interpret all of these kinds of things. And then there's like taking it to another level. And I am by no means a subject matter expert in this, but it is a place where this is a a course of study that you could do at university and things like that, is semiotics. And I caught something in the last episode that I've been kind of excited to mention or point out a couple of details. One of the environmental scenes that we see of Ennis just around, in all these different shots, is of a lighthouse beacon, but it was like at an industrial facility or something like that. But basically, as a lighthouse function, right? This rotating light to warn people of things or to let people know where something is. And then we get a scene of Navarro out on the ice around the time that she has her vision, when she slips on the ice. And the camera is way back, and she's searching her light into the dark in the ice like a lighthouse in a way. And then we go to a scene
Mm.
with Jules at a shipwreck. And I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And I know before there was some talk about, oh, is the lighthouse a sinister thing? Is this are the Tuttles involved in secreting people away using the lighthouse stuff? No, I think the lighthouse was just a reasonable name for a community health center. But this idea of lighthouses has been introduced, and we've got these strong visual scenes that are really closely connected in time, of these two lighthouses. And then who's at the shipwreck? Jules is at the shipwreck.
Mm.
And Navarro is her beacon. She's trying to bring her in. She's trying to give her the pathway in the dark. Like, I'm here. This is safe. It's safe to come here. Lighthouse is also warn of danger, right? They're saying, hey, this is where the coastline is. Make sure you adjust your course accordingly.
Mm.
And then it's this whole idea of light versus dark, which is very True Detective, right? This idea that there are dark forces, and it's the light that we're trying to use the light to keep the dark forces at bay. So all of that is at play here, and I just, again, really appreciate the deeper level construction that Lopez is doing here visually and in the storytelling. And I don't know if there's more of those. That's just one that has really jumped out at me.
Mm.
But yeah, I just thought it was super cool. And the vision of this ship right after these two other things, it really worked on me. So
I'm loving all the symbolism that you're pointing out here.
yeah,
Yeah, it's it makes it even more heartbreaking.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So semiotics. You can at me if you have issues with semiotics.
cool. We cut to Leah packing up her things and leaving to stay at Pryor's. She's then picked up by Kayla. Liz throws the uncooked turkey into the trash and gets drunk while watching the Annie K video again. Uh
Yeah.
she's like, I'm not cooking this fucking turkey if you're not here. Um
That's
also,
expensive to get that turkey up to Alaska, way up there to Ennis. That is an expensive turkey. That's like 3 to 4 times the price we would pay down here in the lower 48.
yeah, well, my thought was, I don't know exactly what time it is because of the long night stuff, but it does seem like it's the evening.
Mm-hmm.
And you needed to start that turkey at like noon. While you
We're
were
the
busting
Lorehounds.
Ted's balls,
We criticize you on your
you,
turkey
you
TV
don't,
making.
guys, you need to go look it up when you have to make a turkey. They have all these calculations you can do and multiply the pounds by the number of hours you have to cook it. And it's, she does not know how to cook a turkey from raw.
Nope. Nope.
Also,
Yeah.
I'm going to guarantee this. She didn't defrost it.
No, it was out before, remember?
No,
She
I
put it
don't
back in
believe
the
you.
fridge. All right.
Navarro,
No, it was. It was
sorry,
out.
Danvers, I don't think knows how to cook a turkey. Based on the way she goes, I'm going to cook for Christmas this year.
Well, like Leah says, I'm not going to make you pretend anymore. That's...
But
that
she
was a
doesn't
gut
fight
punch.
hard enough. Honestly, I think that Danvers does not fight hard enough.
Well,
to
then
keep her there.
she turns on her heel and says, "Fine, get out." Like F you.
Yeah, that's the
you know?
point, is just withholding. She won't be like, look, I just went to bat for you. I just want to have a nice Christmas together. I'm sorry for how I've been acting. You know, I don't think Danvers has said she's sorry in her entire life. She didn't even say sorry to Navarro after she ranted about no afterlife.
Right.
And then Navarro's
Right.
like,
Learns
yeah, well,
about her
my
sister.
sister's dead.
Yeah.
She wasn't like, oh, sorry, I said all that. She was just
Right.
like, oh,
No, she's an
that's
a-hole.
bad.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
And then I can't help but, because we get that little scene of Hank and Peter when she calls over there, and or no, just sorry, that wasn't this scene. That's later, but this where. Well, no, maybe it is. Well, anyway, the point is that Danvers has just run roughshod over this entire family, over Hank, like taking his job, right? You know, if she was promoted over him, working Peter nonstop, ruining Kayla's, marriage, and that son. Like, she's just had a horrible impact on just this one family.
Yeah. I guess Kayla doesn't have anything else to do that night. Just like Hank Breyer. I got nowhere to be. I can wait.
Right. So
boy,
sad.
oh boy.
So sad.
Oh boy. All right, back at home, Navarro finds a present from Kavik at her door.
SpongeBob is the Yellow King. We can move on.
Agreed. As the song ends, Danvers hits, and by the way, the Billie Eilish song that we mentioned 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
As the song ends, Danvers hits on a connection between the Melina and Annie K videos. Someone or something cuts the power in both. She calls Navarro and then Peter to have the follow-up with Tagak, who is now a suspect. Because I guess he was the equipment manager, right? So he would have had the gear. You ever watch Portlandia? This is my second sitcom reference in the night.
Yes, Portlandia was a favorite in the day.
Oh yeah, well yeah, you're from that coast, so
yes, I graduated high school in Portland, in fact.
I'm sure it was meaningful to you. Anyway, they have that whole bit about like, you got to get the gear. We got to get the gear, and then by the time they get all the gear, it's nighttime. Right. But this guy had the gear.
He did, and so we have Heiss, who mapped the caves, and Tagak, who set up the ability for them to go do stuff in the caves. That's where I'm going right now with these theories.
Okay, I like it.
Yep,
I like it.
But that's on the rational side of thing. On the spooky dooky side of things, the Choompa Loompa side of things. In episode 1, we had multiple occasions when weird stuff happens. There was some sort of electrical disturbance. and like the wolf that Rose was gutting sort of just jolts a little bit when she sees Travis for the first time. A couple times on the radio when something happens. So whatever this phenomena is, it has the ability to affect the electrical, the EM fields, if you will. So
Yeah. All right. I buy it. At Pryor's, Leah learns to roll out dough and with Kayla and her mother. Peter collects Navarro and they drive out to the hunting camp, which seems abandoned. Tagak is not there, but he left a couple of spirals. Spooky, spooky.
So the song that's playing in this scene is "Into Dust" by Mazzy Star, and it's just so good. The song is about a story of a woman who feels like she's decaying and fading away as if
Mm,
she's into dust, and just this idea that somehow our interactions with people just disappear and are so ephemeral. It's just
mm-hmm.
such a good song. I really love it.
Yeah.
And then when they get to the hunting camp, they show us the scenes of all of the antlers and bones and stuff. That is very reminiscent of season one in certain scenes where there's just lots of stuff. So that's a good strong rhyme back with season one. And then when we see the spiral, whenever we see a spiral, listen to the visual effects. There's a weird kind of sound that plays, and they
Hmm.
play it here. There's this like weird astral projection-y, thing. It's and so it's that auditory cue, like something supernatural.
Yeah, and when the men of the camp come and say, "Hey, you need a warrant," they seem spooked by the spiral too. She
Yeah,
shows the spiral to them, and they're like, "Oh,
and the dogs bark when she
yeah,
does that. So
yeah."
very, very,
What's
very
going on
creepy.
here?
Yep.
Yeah, I know. I think you said season one the spirals were kind of a red herring,
Yeah.
but in this season they're definitely doing something with them.
Not so much of a red herring. That it was just a design that a production person threw up, and it didn't have as big. There, we probably have seen 2 to 3 times the number of spirals in this season than we did in season one.
We cut back over to Danvers, who gets sick of looking at case files and decides to drive over to Daddy Ted's hotel. We learn more about how Danvers ended up in Ennis. They argue, and Liz leaves. Yeah, we Mr. Teeth Whitener over here.
Watching
Which
Elf.
can I say it's just pretty funny to watch a Brit try to make their teeth perfect. All right,
That's a
all
good
right,
point.
all right.
You can add him.
You can at me.
So apparently, the teeth whitening thing, the UV doesn't do the work. It's the chemicals that you put on the teeth, and then the UV expedites the process by exciting the molecules of the gel so that those can get into the enamel more quickly. So that's why when she kisses him, she's like, "Ooh, that's gross," because he's got a bunch of weird teeth whitening stuff on his teeth
I'm
there.
cutting you off of deep dives. You've gone too far.
I did one Google search. One Google
You've
search
gone
got
too
me the
far.
answer. So
But what the big part about the scene is just this whole, people hate you. People
yeah,
hate working with you, and that's why I had to transfer you.
yeah.
It's like I had to get you far away from the capital because probably she was a toxic asset to his career.
Yeah, probably. And as he says, she got worse after Jake and Holden. So,
Yeah.
she needed some place where she could just focus on work.
Yeah. We still don't know exactly what happened with them, but assuming it's bad.
Yeah, assuming it was like a drunk driver incident.
Yeah.
That seems to be
We've
what they've
gotten
told us
clues
so
to
far.
it.
Yeah.
And if they don't tell us exactly what happened, I wouldn't be completely disappointed. It's, it's vague backstory, vague, sad backstory. We visit with Hank, who is also watching Elf and regretting his life choices. Yeah, that's a recurring thing in this, isn't it?
Well, just
Elf.
twice. Just it looks like just twice.
Elf starts off, he walks from the North Pole to New York City. Was that what Jules was trying to do?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just doing stupid conspiracy theories now
Okay.
because I was trying to find some. I was thinking to myself
No
like,
humor
okay,
there.
twist and shout, twist and shout is a whole thing. Is
Got it.
Alpha thing?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people watch it during the holidays, but
Yeah. And
yeah.
Hank Pryor is like, I can't watch Zoe Deschanel fall in love with this elf right now. I can't
In
handle
his teal room, in his teal living room.
that. Yeah.
John Hawkes is killing it as Hank, by the way. His acting is so good in this. So anyway,
Yeah. Very believable. Very
yeah.
believably an asshole. As Pryor and Navarro get back to her house, Navarro gets a call from the Coast Guard about Julia. Peter gets home late, and things are not great with Kayla.
Yeah. So just this fact that Navarro is like, yeah, everything's fine, go home to your family. And then Pete's family life is not great either. It's so rough. It's so rough all around.
It was bad.
And
It
then
was
it's
really
just
bad.
such a beautifully lit scene too, as Peter walks in the door from the dark, right? He's in dark silhouette. He's in the dark and he comes into the warmth and the light of a Christmas tree all lit up and his home and, all the smells that represent home for us. And then he says that shit about, you know, about you didn't really, I ruined your life and you didn't really want the baby. I was just like, no, don't say that, man. Don't do that to your children, you know?
Yeah, that was really bad. Don't bring the kid into the fight. So I
No.
I was actually going to ask you about that line because I heard baby
Uh-huh.
and but then I've listened to it back and I thought he was saying like you didn't want it anyway, like or you didn't want any of it, like I thought he was maybe just saying like you didn't want this life with like me as a cop, but I think you're right. It was baby. We just don't have subtitles, so and he says it fast, and I really did try several times to understand what he was saying, but I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
get a lock on it.
Yeah, no, I assumed it was Darwin is what they were
Okay,
talking about. So,
yeah,
yeah.
very sad, very sad. I wish he didn't, and like he's been so sweet to everybody the whole season,
Yeah. Yeah.
and now all of a sudden he's lashing out, and that's the first time we've seen him do that.
Yeah. It's rough.
Actually, we saw him kind of lash out at Kayla in the first episode when she's trying to, feel him up a little bit, and he's like, "No, I have to take the call." And so I think he's lashes out at his wife,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
Well,
is
he's
some darkness.
Yep, yep. And this is again a true detective hallmark is that the price that the Guardians pay, and that's what goes on a lot with Woody Harrelson's character in season one. Is he's trying to preserve the bubble, the innocent bubble of his family, and so he has to dispel all this energy in other places, which then gets him in trouble with his family because he
Didn't
doesn't
help
want to.
that it was secretly helping break into the Watergate.
you keep
Didn't help.
you keep working that joke. It doesn't help either.
I
It doesn't help
listen.
that show either.
It just he Nixon kept calling, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good. In a rage, Navarro goes to the lighthouse and loses her shit. She then goes and picks a fight with the asshole from episode 1. Yeah, I don't blame her for the lighthouse one.
Mm-hmm.
It's not okay. I understand that it's not a detention facility, and we could have a long conversation about how mental health care has gone down in this country, in part because of lack of funding, and in part because we've had some court rulings that rightfully so say you can't detain people against their will, but they didn't have an alternative, right? They didn't put in place an alternative of what happens when somebody's in one of these voluntary facilities. And I think really they should have, first of all, known that she was gone. They didn't even know she was gone. And second was they should have called Navarro. They should have called Evangeline the minute that they knew she was gone.
Yep. Yep.
At
Yep.
least she's gone an hour. Go find her.
Yeah.
Maybe she could have gotten there in time, but I mean, I doubt it. But you know what I mean? Like they did not do their due diligence here. This guy clearly did not give a shit working at the
Right.
desk.
Well, yeah. 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 It's
The mine has more security.
than this.
Get those guys working in Lighthouse.
Right. When Navarro goes to pick the fight with those guys. There's something that struck me there too, which is when she's down on the ground and she's getting kicked at the end of the scene. There's a mention of the violence that was done to Annie Kay's body at the murder scene, that she was also kicked after she had died. And it really, again, another rhyming couplet there, just a lot of ugly trauma stuff. Regardless, and then I wanted to think too about this, regardless of whether that guy pressed charges or not, if it ever got to her trooper command that this happened, that's a career ending thing, just from a conduct unbecoming kind of
and
situation.
as it should be, right? Like,
absolutely,
it should be career ending that you went and beat somebody up for the sake of it. Just to
and
get
she
your
used a
anger out.
weapon, like she picked up a hubcap and hit one of the guys with it, right? So
yeah, it's probably felony battery.
Yeah, completely. So, and then color of authority too, because she rolled up in uniform with her lights on.
Yep.
Right. So,
Terrible.
last two little quick notes about this scene too. The song is "This Wild Darkness" by Moby. And there's great lyrics in there, which I won't go in, but the chorus is, "Ooh, in this darkness, please light my way, light my way." And all about night, and I'll never be free, blah, blah, blah. And as the camera rises up from, Navarro getting the shit kicked out of her, literally, there's a line of trucks in the back.
Did you say literally? So she's pooping at this moment?
So come on.
All right.
And there's a line of trucks. So this is like some sort of junkyard. And beyond it is the dark of night. And it's this really weird thing where the trucks bisect the darkness. And so what's in the light and in the mundane and the rational is in the lower part of the screen. And then the camera rises up into the darkness as this, really soulful song, "This Wild Darkness" plays. It's, again, another masterful shot.
Wow. Nice.
I will put the "This Wild Darkness" Moby lyrics in the show notes as well, or not in the show notes.
Like Moby
in the detective thing.
He did all the music for Holes, I think.
Oh yeah,
we liked that one. As the song continues to play, we get an overhead shot of Danvers driving down the road in the darkness with her headlights lighting the way. She almost collides with the one-eyed polar bear.
So, one-eyed polar bear. Do you have thoughts? Because I have a very strong theory about this.
I don't have a thought on the polar bear exactly. I just was absolutely certain she was going to get into a terrible accident here.
Sure. Yeah, you can feel that coming, right?
Yeah. And then she didn't. She just, got stuck in the snow for a second and apparently made it home.
A couple of episodes ago, we had I picked up something from a Redditor, and I forget that person's handle right off the top of my head, but they had posted some information about polar bears being guardian spirits for Arctic communities. So I really am strong on the theme that this is a guardian spirit, not a malevolent force. Okay. This isn't a type 3. And going back to the sort of semiotic-y stuff, there's some dream sequences later, which we're about to get to, right? This polar bear, the stuffed polar bear, has one eye. There's Bettina sent me a picture of a polar bear statue that's in town that had snow covering one of the eyes. In the dream sequence, and a lot of the dream sequences, and the one coming up, we see Holden having a hand over his eye, or we only see one eye because of the shot. So I think this polar bear and Holden are connected in some way.
Okay. We definitely did have the polar bear with Holden prominent later on. Well, having a snooze, Kavik is woken up by the sounds of Navarro cleaning herself up. He attempts to comfort her, then pretends to propose as a ruse to reset her broken finger. That was smart. Because even I was like, oh, dude, not now.
Yeah,
oh,
seriously.
My God. But I love that it was just a ruse.
Yeah. He's such a good person for her. He's such a...
He knows exactly what she needs.
Yeah.
He doesn't give her what she wants, but what she needs.
Oh, sounds like somebody should write a song about that.
I actually kind of stole that whole idea from Doctor Who, where the Doctor there's an episode where the Doctor gets to talk to the TARDIS for a minute.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
She's like sentient for a minute, and she is sentient in general, but she's incarnated in person for an episode. And he says, "Why don't you always take me where I want to go?" And she goes, "I take you where you need to be."
Nice. Well, and that's
And
of course the famous Rolling Stones song as well. You
is
can't
it?
always get what you. Yeah, you can't
Oh,
always
you
get
can't
what you
always
want.
get what you want. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But that's the point, right? Is I think Kavik gives Navarro what she needs, makes her open up about her mother.
Yeah.
He, heals her finger even though she doesn't want him to do it.
Right.
Doesn't actually do the sappy romantic thing that she thinks he's doing, but instead
Total distraction.
does genius.
So
Genius. Would not have thought to do that. And even when she yells at him afterwards, he gives her a second of space.
Yeah.
He doesn't rush back in. He gives her
Yeah.
a second to cool down, and then he goes and comforts her more.
Well, cool down. She's going deeper into her trauma, but beyond the point of "I'm pissed at you," she's now going into the deep.
When
trauma.
I say cool down, I mean
stop being angry at
yeah.
him. Yeah,
yeah.
I get it.
Like she's not going to punch me immediately.
Right. Did you catch that the spiral rock is there? He put it on the bar or whatever.
Yeah, that's a Kavik. Yep.
Cool.
It's Christmas Day, David, the 8th night of night, and the sun seems to be returning.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we were supposedly at 150 miles north of the Arctic Circle line, so I don't know how it works there. How many actual? I don't think that the show has told us how many days of night we're going to have. How long?
I think it's like 3 months, isn't it?
Something like that's like when you're way up north. That's when you're way up.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, I think it is. I think it is still months, but you do still get like these brief, like the sun peaks up for a second, right?
Yeah,
exactly. It's not completely gone, even if you're in night. That's
it's
still
only
a night
totally
just because you have the sun peaking up
when you're up at the very top. I think, right? So, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's Christmas Day, and Danvers has successfully ruined 4 Christmases. Right? She ruined her Christmas.
Yeah.
She ruined the Prior's Christmas.
Yeah.
She ruined Ted's Christmas, and she ruined Navarro's Christmas.
Did she ruin Navarro's Christmas?
I guess. Well, she did make her work on Christmas, but I think she wanted to. I think Navarro wanted to.
Yeah, she did make them go out, so that sucked.
Yeah. Danvers has a dream of Holden and is woken up by Navarro ringing the doorbell. Navarro realizes she lost the stone and tells Danvers that Jules has died. They argue about the existence of the afterlife. Navarro thinks she's cursed and she lies about what happened at Wheeler's. Danvers gets a call.
So the dream, really quick, one-eyed Holden, quite a lot in there, and then cemeteries. And we saw some scenes in the opening credits where there's what I would guess are whale rib bones formed into an archway. And it seems like that might be used as sort of a traditional marking or quasi-traditional markings at cemeteries. So we get some straight up cemetery reference along with Holden here.
This whole thing where she's ranting about the afterlife was rough. Because and it was a great example of situational irony, right? Where the audience knows what just happened to Navarro, but Danvers is just so in her own head right now.
Right.
And Danvers has legitimate trauma happening right now, right? She has her stepdaughter basically trying to disown her. And yeah, it's just really rough to watch her dig herself deeper into this ditch while Navarro's standing right there.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And again, I think very, very true detective, this arguing about the nature of reality and our existence. So, still on brand there. I also thought that the no heaven or hell, that was a nice little Beatles callback, given that we've got Twist and Shout, in our ears all the time.
Heaven and hell, is that? Oh, no heaven or hell below us. That's not the Beatles. That's John Lennon.
Well, he'd be technically offended. You are correct.
He'd be offended. But John Lennon did also sing Twist and Shout, so I'll give it to you.
Technically, yes. I was mildly incorrect.
Listen, I had like a Beatles obsession for like a year in high school,
Uh-huh.
so I'll trivia you out.
All right,
I'll
that's
I'll,
fine.
I'll compete with you in
You
Beatles
can go.
trivia.
That's fine. You
Yeah,
can take the old
yeah.
man to the woodshed. You can.
Oh boy.
Schizophrenia, bipolar, and borderline personality disorder. So schizophrenia, yeah, we were talking about that earlier on in the season. So yeah,
Yeah.
that is a full house there. That's not great. We do have some feedback too that talks a little bit about mental health stuff from Bettina W. So we'll talk a little bit more when we get there. More about the Wheeler case.
Yes. Yes.
So Navarro sees a ghost. Was that the dead girl? That's kind of what I read it as. It seemed like the clothing, the top seemed to be the same
Yeah,
sort of
that's what I
spaghetti
thought.
strap. Okay, good. I
I
thought so
thought
too.
that this was later that they argued about it, like in the mine, in the abandoned dredge, rather.
No, it was here. It was
Oh
here.
man, I have it mixed up then. But yeah,
Because
that's
she's saying you know when Navarro is going on about like after seeing the polar bear and seeing stuff, and then she says this is just like in the Wheeler case, you saw something then. And Navarro says no, I didn't, and completely lies about it and shuts it down.
right.
And Danvers is so pissed at her for like not being honest in this moment of all the times when we need some authenticity and honesty between each other. You're shutting down, and this is
Yeah.
BS.
But it is believable to me that Navarro is withholding like that, right? Is
Completely.
Navarro is like I think part of it is she's terrified that she's also mentally ill.
Completely agree. Completely agree.
And if
And
she
that's why
acknowledges it as real out loud, then she has to
deal with it.
she has to decide whether she's going to go with Rose, saying, is it mentally ill or is it, real ghosts? Or is she going to go check into Lighthouse?
Which is going to end her career.
Yep.
So,
well, she's doing a pretty good job of that herself.
without too much help.
I don't think she needs a diagnosis to end her career.
So great conversation going on the Discord the last couple of days. People debating what happened in the Wheeler case. I posted a couple of GIFs of just showing Navarro and then just showing Danvers as they have their guns drawn on Wheeler. And apparently he's whistling Twist and Shout and their reactions to it. And so everybody's like, no, I think it's this person. No, I think it's that person. And in a really kind of fun, everybody's having fun with their arguments, the logical, the construction of arguments. So it's pretty cool. So
that is cool. I like it.
Fun.
Last scene here, they head out to the old abandoned gold dredge to follow up on a possible sighting of what turns out to be Heiss. Navarro starts having visions after seeing the giant spiral. Danvers finds Heiss and Navarro has an encounter that leaves her with a ruptured eardrum. Is that a ruptured eardrum, or is she just bleeding from her injuries before?
No, that's a ruptured eardrum. That's what
it's new?
Yeah, that's what the guys had in the. Yep.
Okay.
100%. So whatever this entity was and is, or whatever's going on there, it had a physical response that or effect that has ruptured her eardrum.
Well, that's no good. I don't think her ENT doctor is going to be very happy with her.
Not at all. This whole thing is very reminiscent of season 1 again, where the two protagonists are separated and they're working their way through some weird ancient structure, trying to confront, whatever is going on here. It doesn't resolve in the same way, but certainly is another rhyming couplet with it. So, and again, when we see the giant spiral, we get that weird wow kind of music, which is interesting. And I don't know if that causes the vision that Navarro has, or if that's just all part and parcel of it all.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, she saw the spiral before and it was fine. And it wasn't just on the rock, it was on the wall, wasn't it? In Tagak's place.
No, it was on a piece of cardboard.
It was on a piece of cardboard. Okay.
Yeah.
But it was
and
big.
There's a little burnt piece of wood there too. So
yeah. Interesting. This is the scene that made me immediately message you after I watched the episode and say, what the fuck was that?
Yep.
It got
No
way
idea.
more supernatural than I thought it would.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
I got a picture of the entity, and so I'll put that in the detective's notebook.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
No idea what's going on there.
Yeah.
No idea. The parka
Yes.
that Hess is wearing
Yes.
has a smiley face on the patch.
Yeah, that's Annie K's jacket.
But no, because the one that we were looking for, the smiley face is removed and there's a rip in place of the smiley face. So, and we only see this, huh?
There is, huh?
Yeah.
So, but I thought
that
I thought that Clark's current jacket had the smiley face on it.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
We don't know. No, the one he has from episode 1, I think, has the rip. Or no, we don't see the shoulder. We see the color. We see just above the shoulder line where we would see whether it has the smiley face or not. And I think in the video, the Annie K video, we would have seen him because we see a full body of him. I'll have to go back and check that. Maybe if anybody's rewatching, send me a screenshot. We could put it.
I thought that it had the smiley face.
Nope.
So
I don't think so.
But I could be wrong.
So I think I have a photo where we see the smiley face on the jacket, but the face of the person is obscured by some equipment, by like an ice core or something like that. So I think that picture that we have seen of the parka with the smiley face is Heiss. And then I think we see some other pictures with Clark and then obviously Annie K, and she probably has his parka. So I think there's 2 parkas floating around out there.
Okay.
And then we get another electrical disturbance as Evangeline approaches the Christmas tree. Because that wasn't on until she got down there. And so something seems to is activating it. And then Heiss says he went back down to hide. He's hiding in the night country. We are all in the night country now. So
spooky. And
then what did Lund say in episode 3? I don't have my notes up, but like we awoke her. She's out there. She's in the ice. So
spooky.
We just have to wait.
Yep. Well, we don't have to wait much, but unfortunately the viewers do. The general public does. It is nice to be able to watch the next episode tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. You know what? I'm looking at the pictures of this entity that's screaming at Navarro.
Mm-hmm.
It's Jules.
It's Jules?
Yeah. She has little dot tattoos coming off of her left eye. She has a little ladder design on the traditional chin tattoos. And she's got blue hair.
All right. Well, that settles it.
That is, I'm pretty sure it is Jules. And when she looks down the gold dredger, down from the upper levels, the hair of the body going back. I'll have to take another picture of the body floating if I can. I know I've got one somewhere. The hair seems to be blue as well. So
cool. That's a good find.
Yeah. Did you see my new rig? I took a gorilla. I posted this in the.
Oh no, I did see this. Sorry,
yeah,
I thought you went on Notion or something.
Yeah, no, I figured out a way I can leave my camera up to take screenshots in a much more efficient manner. So very
that's
happy
cool.
with it. Yeah,
that's cool.
Getting some good results.
Well, David, we've taken this episode apart. You lose the bet. It's an hour and 46 minutes in.
We got closer because last time we were like over 2 hours just on the content, right?
And right. Now we've still got listener feedback.
Yeah. See, that takes us way over. So
yeah. Well, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we'll get into it.
Perfect.
And we're back. David, people want to write in they can
do.
go to thelorehounds.com, head to our contact page, send us a contact form entry or a voicemail, which is a lot of fun when people do that. They could also email truedetective at thelorehounds.com, or they could tag us on our Discord server in the True Detective channel if they'd like to do that. They could also just hop on the Discord just to be part of the conversation. Whole lot of fun over there.
Some people even send us Patreon messages.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
First up is Andrew K with an email with a couple of technical suggestions. He says, "Hey guys, loving the True Detective coverage. Feels like you're back in your wheelhouse as I think back to your Andor coverage. It does feel nice to have a really substantial show to be able to cover."
Mm-hmm.
I had mentioned something about Notion and hit counter things, and Andrew K said, "I know that there was a mention about not having a hit counter like the old school days, but on the Notion Detective notebook. But he wanted to make sure that I knew that there is a stats feature that's built into it. So he gave me the helps page for that, and so I was able to actually see, oh yeah, like what's going on. So it's been very helpful. Thank you, Andrew." And then he continues, "Also, I know another listener has mentioned the intro being a little long. I think we've shortened it considerably
Yep.
since
Yep.
then. But wondering in the notes if you could add some time markers like the example below. I know it's a bit of added work, but it would be swell." So he gave an example of being able to, in the show notes, being able to link so that the audio will jump to a particular time code. And I think we can do that, but we have to publish the episode first and then go back in and edit the show notes to be able to do that. But
It's tricky. So we've talked about this in the past, and basically
yeah,
the problem is we do a separate version for patrons and public. So I'd have to go and do separate timestamps, and it's a little rough. Also, I edit the podcast in reverse. It's just kind of not practical for the way I edit. I'm
right,
going to be honest.
right.
Um,
But
if
we would know
someone
that
really
after the
wants to
podcast anyway.
listen to the podcast before everyone else, and then and then do timestamps for us, maybe we'll do that.
Yeah, but it's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
But I
If it were
appreciate
more
it.
practical, I'd do it. It's just kind of hard to work in.
If we had an actual engineer, like if we had a big enough Patreon where we could actually hire somebody to do all of our editing and engineering, that would be something we could totally have them do. So at this
Guess I'm not
point,
an actual engineer. I just learned that.
you're you're an engineer that has a day job. You're
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's I used to edit the podcast really manually, and I think that we've been able to do more projects because I do it this way now,
Yeah.
because I do marker style editing, but it does have its disadvantages. Like I can't do timestamps really.
All right. An email from our old friend, Kim M. Hi, Kim. Good to hear from you. They say, "Hi, David and John. It's so nice to hear your voices again. I've been only listening to audiobooks for the last couple of months. I hope all is well with the both of you." Well, it largely is. And thanks for asking. Kim continues, "One of the things I noticed when watching movies and shows is the lighting, especially artificial lighting in closed spaces. I think it's because I took theater production in high school and I went to a 4-year art school with a theater department. I was in the visual arts department, by the way. I'm a painter. Anyway, I know this is from a couple of episodes ago, but I was especially nerding out on the scene with Navarro and Kavik inside the shanty. I'm guessing the fish swimming was visual effects, but amazing if not. I'm not sure if they had lights embedded in the ice to give it that eerie green glow coming from the floor. If so, they did add some green bulbs. Is that a natural color? How many lights they use in and around the building? It glows green on the outside as well. I'm not asking the right questions." Kim says, "Yeah, the lighting was just really beautiful in that scene." And I think it had to have been some artificial thing. I think they had to mimic that light. And I don't know in ice fishing if you do put lights down below at night like that.
Yeah, I have no
So
idea how ice fishing works. I've never had to ice fish.
Nancy M posted a picture on the Discord of her son and a couple of his buddies ice fishing out because they live in
Oh, that's
Alaska and
cool.
that's something to do. It was really funny. They caught a can of beer. Go figure.
Well, it's something.
"We're not used to looking at people that are being lighted from below. We've all been conditioned to get the spooky vibe when we see it. On top of that, it's green, so it's even more strange. I love it. And Navarro is being lit from her right by a glowing orange heater. So she has an extra layer of bizarro shadows and colors on her face. That's a really good pick. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Nice one. Kim continues, life drawing was one of my favorite classes in undergrad. I took it often as my elective. I can't help but see shadows and lines when I look at people. How would I draw you? It would be fun to draw Miss Reese from that scene. Yeah, it would. Really a lot going on there with her expressions and stuff. Kim concludes, my money is on Danvers shooting Wheeler. I mean, he started whistling her trigger song, but we do know that Navarro isn't afraid to break the law. She pours alcohol in the guy's tank in the first episode. I'm 75% Danvers, 25% Navarro. Enjoying the coverage so far, as usual, and appreciate y'all. I'm so happy to have you in my headphones again. Best, Kim M. Good to hear from Kim.
Yeah.
Any
Good
thoughts?
to be in your headphones again, Kim.
Absolutely.
And loving the discussion of visuals. I always say I'm terrible with visual identification of like, clues
Stuff.
and whatnot. I'm much better with, written word and sound and whatnot. But yeah, it's great to when people point it out to me. Then I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and again, just a really excellent production. The show is really putting the, they're putting the effort in. They're putting the hours in for it.
Yep.
All right, next up is Lore Master Bettina W. Bettina sent in a couple of messages. We were gotten into a little chit chat back and forth. So, and one of her emails was from before, or I think it was like right after we recorded episode 3. So I basically took apart her several messages and sort of combined them into one where it sort of makes sense. Bettina says, spotted 3 things from my rewatch of episode 1. First, another polar bear that's missing from the notebook, snow covering one of its eyes. It's I believe it's a statue in town and they drive by it. And I've added that to the polar bear collection. Thank you, Bettina. Bettina says, I'm curious to see how far they'll go in trying to tie this back to season 1. Possible McConaughey cameo or some sort of Rust Cole flashback. I think the consensus is folks are like, we're fine. We don't need that by and large is what I'm getting a sense of. And then Nick Pizzolatto, the original showrunner, has not been a gentleman about his reactions to the season. He said some really unkind things online in very sort of shade. He's throwing some shade. And
about
he said
this season that we're on now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not good.
Not at all.
That's
Not
so
cool
uncool.
Yep. It's like down in comments on his Instagram, he'll say, oh, can't blame me if you don't like the season. And why would McConaughey want to come back? Like just really sarcastic, cutting bullshit. So
we don't
it's
like
kind of
that.
Gross. Yeah. It's kind of gross. So
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see how far they go back. I think hopefully they'll connect it more to the grand conspiracy stuff and maybe, not in the specifics. Additionally, when drunk, Stacy, when she's talking about Stacy Chalmers, gets picked up by Danvers, she says something like, my baby, she's not talking to me. Is she seeing her dead kid? Seeing the dead and different ways of dealing with it seem to be thematic now. That's a good pick. I hadn't thought about that.
And now Danvers is the one drunk driving.
Exactly, right? She's like, don't judge me. It's like, it's not a question of judgment. It's your judgment that's under question.
Right.
Okay, so then Bettina, so that's catching up on all the other stuff. And then Bettina says, watched episode 3 today and enjoyed the heck out of it. Just 2 quick comments. I am a social worker in a psychiatric care facility, and mostly I work with people who are diagnosed with schizophrenia. So I'm very used to people telling me about seeing or hearing stuff that I can't see or wouldn't identify as quote unquote real. After almost 10 years on the job, the rational explanation of biochemical processes in the brain has become my default framework to evaluate any situation, even movies or television shows, that deals with stuff that can't be real. Of course, for the person experiencing the hallucinations of any kind, it is very real, and people deal with it in a lot of different ways, very much like we see in Ennis, Rose versus Jules. So I find myself sitting on my couch watching weird stuff, not finding it weird or scary at all. Kind of sucks. I'm curious to see if this season will go fully paranormal, leaving it ambiguous or giving us a rational explanation for everything. I prefer ambiguous or rational. I prefer ambiguous or more. I don't understand her sentence here.
I'd prefer either ambiguous or rational. So either, I
Yes,
think
there we
she's
go.
saying,
I got it now.
either it could be, either they don't answer it or it's a rational
Right,
answer.
and not paranormal. I got it
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
A
I
huge.
don't think you're gonna get what you want. I'm gonna be honest, Bettina. I think after this episode that you had not seen at the time of writing this,
Yeah.
we are leaning firmly into the paranormal.
Bettina continues, a huge mental health issue is hearing voices. We usually distinguish three kinds of voices: voices talking about the person, voices talking directly to the person, voices giving orders, sometimes resulting in severe self harm. I know it doesn't translate perfectly to the three kinds of ghosts we're seeing in Ennis, but I can't help but think that there's something there. Maybe in the end, the big picture won't be about a killer at all, but really only about what we can already see: mental health, environmental, and domestic violence issues, and what it does to community. I'd like that, she says. So, what do you think? Any thoughts there, in John?
I think it could be yes and. I think back to Fargo, and I think I brought this up before of how they sort of tied up the real life themes of debt and redemption and justice with a supernatural plot line, just to put a bow on it. You know, doing this 3-step reveal of you know, you can get all these themes of domestic violence just by being there if you're paying attention, or we will throw in some paranormal stuff just to show you how much of victims these people are.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think you can have it be layered like that. I don't think that the supernatural will necessarily take away from the rational messaging. It can just reassert it.
Right. Can augment it or highlight it in some ways. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. And I like this parallel that Bettina's pointing out here about the different voices that by and large that they categorize: talking to the person, talking about the person, talking directly to the person, and then giving orders to someone. It does really overlap quite strongly. Like you could see some
Yeah.
connectivity there if you
Definitely.
wanted to. So, and that's what Rose says, right? Don't confuse mental illness for the whatever she said. I can't remember if she say spiritual or metaphysical or whatever. So, Bettina concludes, finally, the long darkness and the disorienting effect as it has on us viewers made me ask myself if I'd rather have a long night or a long day without any darkness for weeks. I'd totally go for darkness and gobble up vitamin D pills to get through. Imagining a few weeks without it ever getting dark seems very exhausting to me, like there's no time to really rest. What about you? Cheers, Bettina. Thanks, Bettina, for writing in. Thanks for being so engaged with the show. It's been a lot of fun, and I know just everybody's. Well, I think our whole community is just really happy. We've got like a really solid show to work on.
Yeah.
John, darkness or long dark or a long day?
Look, you can buy a sleep mask if the light's bothering you and you can't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You can't recreate the
The
sun.
sun.
I'm not with you. I'm not with you, Bettina. I'm going for the light.
Yeah.
How about you, David?
Would think that from a circadian rhythm standpoint, it would be much better to go with the daytime because, yeah, you could, make artificial darkness for yourself. At the same time, I don't know. There's something cool about the darkening effect, and I don't know. Maybe if I don't know about 3 months, maybe for a month or a couple of weeks, it would be an interesting experience to experience. But yeah, I think if I had to do it on the regular, I would go with the daylight.
All right, I'm taking over. Lore Master Nancy M wrote in on the Patreon channel for episode 3. Hi, everyone. I was interested in your discussion about whether the mine is a red
They
herring.
call it a mine.
A mine. This sent me to the internet for a few searches about contaminated water. Here in Canada, boil water advisories are very common on remote/northern First Nation reserves. I found this on the Government of Canada's website. In 2021, 2% of boil water advisories were due to the detection of
E. coli.
Escherichia Oil.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. E.
Just E.
coli.
coli.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. 8% were due to other microbiological parameters, and the remaining 90% were due to equipment and process related problems. Most boil water advisories are issued because the equipment and processes used to treat, store, or distribute drinking water break down, require maintenance, or have been affected by environmental conditions. Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I wonder if the mine has anything to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
In 2021, this accounted for 90% of boil water advisories. So I think the water and the mine may not necessarily be related. Several decades ago here in Ontario, an entire town got sick and several people died because the people in charge of the water system didn't know what they were doing. That's awful.
Yeah. Well, Flint, right? We have that going on in Flint, Michigan. Same thing. They screwed with the water system in such a way that it caused a bunch of lead to get dislodged from the pipes, and it was a totally preventable thing. So
Yeah. The presence of microorganisms, including bacteria, virus, and parasites, chemicals, and radioactive substances in drinking water can cause serious complications in pregnant women, such as preterm delivery, miscarriage, and stillbirth. Well, there you have it. That's what we have going on in this show.
yeah. So again, yeah, taking this really fascinating fictional story and then just drawing a bright line under these real world issues that we're dealing with, and I think again that's what good fiction can do, right? It can really help us focus on what's really happening in the real world.
Yeah.
So, and Nancy M's
Gnarls. Oh,
been sorry. I
I
stepped
jumped
on
the
your
gun on
gnarls
my
line.
gnarls?
Yes, you got it. Now you got two. We're gonna get multiple gnarls in tonight. Nancy M's been great on the Discord in the last couple of days. She's been posting some theories. She posted some photos for a couple of rounds of photos for me for the notebook. So big shout out to Nancy M.
Cool.
Now, gnarls. Now you can do
Thank
your
you.
gnarls.
Thank you, Nancy. Always great to hear from you. And I heard Nancy is enamored with the Wheel of Time, and I'm happy to welcome you to Randland, Nancy.
Oh, really? That's very cool.
Yeah.
All
right, gnarls. How high can I get? How high can I get? Sent in an email to truedetective@thelorehounds.com. I just want to clarify, in case you skip the Patreon shoutouts at the end, Gnarls has requested that we always read his name as a question
with
in
the
rising,
rising.
so
Yeah.
that's the
What do they
joke
call
here.
that? What do they call that thing? The rising something or something?
It's whatever you want it to be. I was thinking about the interview of Finn Bennett where he claims to pay attention to the oranges.
Finn Bennett's the actor who plays Peter Pryor.
Okay. Because of this, more discussion of the incident on the tundra with Navarro and her throwing the orange is warranted. Earlier in the season, and this very episode 3, referring to, this issue of Navarro's Inupiaq name is brought into question. This issue of what it means to be part of indigenous culture in Ennis affects other characters as well, like Leah and Annie K. So anyway, back to the oranges. It is well documented that scurvy has been endemic to outsiders living in the Arctic regions due to the short supply of vitamin C dietarily. Indigenous communities avoided scurvy by outcome of their diet, fresh meat and fish, plants, and berries. This is the reason why Hank's hillbillies have a bunch of oranges. When Navarro tosses the orange, a symbol of outsiders, into the tundra and the tundra returns the orange to her,
I love
I
this
believe
take.
this is related to her relationship with her own culture. In many ways, Navarro is an outsider with her time in Boston and being a cop, despite also being a member of the community. Does the tundra / Sedna / whoever is awake know that she cannot remember her Inupiaq name? Could a reconnection to her culture be the key to solving the Annie K and Salal cases?
I love
That's
this
such a
take.
cool take.
Yeah. The
I was
tundra's
so
like,
impressed with this.
yeah, the tundra's like, oh, you want to give me an orange? I don't know. Who are you? Right?
Right.
Just
right.
like, who are you to give me an orange?
Right.
So good.
You're going to need the orange, lady. You're going to get scurvy.
That's right. Yeah. And this is a really cool thing, too, that she's able to weave into this story because of the whole Godfather thing. And it's now a thing, right? Other filmmakers and television producers have taken the orange, if you see an orange, somebody's going to die
Right.
concept and put it in all kinds of things. And I put a link to a really funny YouTube video in the Detectives Journal about oranges. And it's just a super cut of oranges in all kinds of TV and movies, and then how those scenes play out. It's really funny. So, but that Lopez is able to play with it both on the level of the Godfather level at the same time as the scurvy and needing vitamins level. Really good, really nice.
Right. Very cool. Very cool. Well, thanks, Gnarls. I think that's something to really keep it. Sorry, thanks, Gnarls. I think that's something to really keep an eye on as we go forward. I'm gonna keep an eye on all the oranges now. You've forced me into looking at visual cues.
I think that's the end of our oranges, as far as I can tell. So
Okay.
I
Well,
think you're safe now.
Jolie,
Yeah.
a first-time emailer, used the contact form. You said emailer, but they used the contact form. What am I supposed to do with that, David?
First time caller,
Ah, first time. They're not calling either. What am I going to do with this,
Exactly.
David?
I don't
All
know
right,
how to deal with
Jolie.
this podcasting thing.
Jolie, we've finally gotten to you. Hey, Lorehounds, not typically one to write into shows, but I couldn't help but laugh at a turn of events in your True Detective episode 3 podcast this week. I probably won't be alone in pointing this out. You actually are alone in pointing this out, so
Yes.
good work.
Good job. Good job,
But you
Joey.
guys actually experienced and perpetuated the comedy-based Mandela effect early in the episode, about an hour before your feedback addressed this exact topic. This is hilarious, guys.
This
Pay
is so
attention.
good. Thank you, Julie, for calling this out. This is so good.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that Sarah Palin said, "I can see Russia from my house." This is actually something Tina Fey said while impersonating her on SNL.
Boom.
You got us. You got us. We've been Mandela'd. Wow. Wow. This coincidence was just too amazing when you later mentioned Chris Farley changing Luke, "I am your father." I guess that the listener was spot on about comedy's effect on memory. Really enjoying the super in-depth coverage. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for writing in, Julie. This was such a delightful little bit of feedback because now we get to laugh at ourselves.
John was chuckling. Yeah, you were having a laugh on that thing. Did you see that email on the
Yeah.
Discord?
I brought it up on it. We were recording another podcast.
That's
and I
right.
brought
That's
it up.
right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's very funny. Very funny. Thanks. I hope you write in again, Julie. I know you said you don't usually do that, but this was good feedback.
Can I take a moment here really quick to address something about feedback too? I noticed I was listening to the Ringer podcast with Joanna Robinson, and they were talking about, Navarro getting busted down to Trooper. And I got so, you don't get busted down to Trooper. I had such an emotional reaction. I was like, it's a lateral move at best, whatever. And what did I do? I wrote in. I got, so the feedback that we get by and large, we'll get lots of feedback. Oh, they filmed in Iceland, not Alaska. That's absolutely a valid thing. But it's this thing when we hear something that we want to correct or make sure somebody knows the right thing. Whereas if we don't do any of those gaffes, people don't write in as much. And what I just really want to encourage people, just write in. We all have thoughts and theories, and we want to hear them. Like we want to be this interactive space. So don't just wait to get triggered by an inaccuracy or something like that. Like write in anytime you've got an idea. I know it takes a little time sometimes, but that's why we've got the voicemail. That's why we've got the contact form. That's why we've got the Discord. There's lots of easy ways to do it. It doesn't even have to be properly grammatically correct or anything. Just send in your thoughts. Okay, rant over.
Well, David, I mean, you inspired many to write in for your worst take of the year last year, which was Joel wasn't it Joel doesn't love Ellie? That was really the thing that I think rubbed people wrong. Write in about The Last of Us in the meantime.
Should we have we should maybe start doing that is keeping tracks of our worst takes and then review them in our Christmas episode.
They there's a podcast that does like a they do that. They compile their worst takes of the year. Maybe we should do that. We should do that. I'm sure I had some bad ones last year, but none were as inspired.
Joel is a monster.
Were as inspiring to people to write in.
We had to do a whole separate podcast just for that issue.
I think we did about 5 hours of feedback because of that.
It was good.
And we were like, should we trim this down? No. Answer it all.
We answer it all. We do it all.
All right. Friend of the pod, Al Chalant, is going to close us out with an email. Wanted to send this straight away. Still in the middle of listening to your pod. Your screeners don't usually have subtitles? I believe I've heard some podcasters say this before.
Yeah. So just a quick interjection there. It depends. Every studio and streamer platform, whatever, however we're getting them, does the screeners differently. Some are not fully VFX processed. Some have screen subtitles. Some don't. Sometimes they don't have the actual titles or credits. Like we don't have end credit scenes
Mm-hmm.
on this or anything like that, or next on. Everybody does it differently. So there's no one standard for screeners. So anyway.
I think we've only had one show with subtitles ever, and it was Foundation.
It was Foundation on Apple TV. Yeah.
Yeah. Apple has the best screeners, I gotta
And they're
tell
like,
you.
here, have a screener.
Yeah.
They're like,
They're
woo.
Apple screeners are great. These ones are good too, though. And something I really appreciate about Warner Brothers screeners is you can fast forward a little bit. So you
Mhm.
can, if you're doing a rewatch, you can kind of skip around a little easier.
Yeah, their scrubbing is a lot better. I just need all screeners to have 2x speeds or some sort of
Hmm.
variable speed. That's the one thing I really miss. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, Al Shalant wanted to share some context clues from the subtitles that show Danvers was more likely to have shot Wheeler because his whistling was the triggering song Twist and Shout. This makes me think even more that Danvers is responsible for her family's death, and this may be known to by the community, and never talked about in front of her because it's just so triggering. Yeah, so that's interesting. Is
That's an
like she
interesting
was
take.
triggered by the whistling.
Yep.
Like he was taunting her. It was suicide by cop.
Yep.
Mm.
And I like this idea that whether Wheeler was specifically involved, maybe that's a little thin, but the fact that there is a sensibility about what happened with Jake. But then did Jake and Holden happen in Anchorage? That's what I'm thinking now because of
Oh yeah, they had to, right?
what Ted said today. So Al Shalant wouldn't have known that because they haven't seen episode 4 yet, so that scene
Right.
wasn't there. So, but still, I like the take. I like the take.
I agree. That it's known this song is so triggering for Danvers to the point where this Wheeler character baits her, cruelly teasing by whistling the melody, bam, murder, suicide. Ooh. But why would this result in Navarro/Danvers split and transfer? It doesn't seem like they disagree on the cover up because Navarro has already said there was nothing else we could have done
Good
in episode
point.
2. Oh, that's good, yeah. When the subject was first mentioned. Maybe it's because Navarro was now a reminder of Danvers' tragic family accident.
Oh, tying the threads together here.
Mm. Additional subtitles when Navarro is on the ice and having spooky stuff happen. The subtitles say the chanting voices she hears are also lyrics of Twist and Shout before she has a vision of Holden telling her, "Tell my mommy," inaudible dialogue. They didn't let us know this even in the subtitles.
Yeah. So twist and shout all over the place. So what are they doing? Where is that gonna go? This is more than a Markley. This is a substantial piece of it. And I think in that, let me check the notebook here. I think in that Reddit post that details all of the twist and shout clues. Let me go to episode 3. Twist and shout references. There are at least 5 confirmed documented subtitles scenes where the subtitles say twist and shout. There's one unconfirmed one in the car accident flashback, and then there's a couple of possible visual references that don't contain the song, but that's when Travis is dancing and the when the twisted corpsicle shouts. I just read that one. I hadn't read that before. Like when he twists the arm off and then it
Yeah.
shouts. That's really
Yeah.
funny. Okay.
Fun. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for writing in, Al Shalant.
Good to hear
Again,
from
you
you.
can write in truedetective@thelorehounds.com, thelorehounds.com/contact, or our Discord server or Patreon, whatever you want. Point is, the episode's done, but we need to talk about what we are doing next outside the True Detective universe.
Yes. So we'll shift dust. Alicia's been a little bit on the break, but she and I are working on some Oscars related stuff. So, and I know she's got some things for Dune coming up, and also going to be covering Three Body Problem. Properly Howard movie reviews on a little bit of a break as well, and I was hopeful for a Severance in this spring, but John is thinking that it's going to be 2025 at best. So
No,
when
I,
Severance
I I
season,
think I could see fall. I could
okay,
see fall.
all right. When Severance season 2 comes back, we will be doing a crossover pod with Steve and Anthony to cover that week to week. In terms of February, we're going to be finishing up True Detective. John, you and Brandon have got some Lorehounds play plans. You guys are going to be doing some stuff with Final Fantasy.
We're definitely doing Final Fantasy VII Remake. We are going to be covering that ahead of Rebirth, which comes out at the end of February. One thing we're debating, and maybe people could write in if they feel either way on it, is do we do anything for the Halo series? Because we just got screeners for that.
No, you guys are definitely doing Halo series.
Oh, okay. I guess we're doing Halo. Yes, I mean,
You have to.
I had mixed feelings on season 1. I didn't finish it, but I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna finish it. They have a new showrunner. I know that the lead who plays Master Chief has been out there trying to convince everyone to watch it. So I'm gonna give it a shot. We'll see. You'll be with us and you'll hear our thoughts either way.
Yeah, for sure. A New Hope is going to be our next film for the Star Wars Film Festival. We should have Rogue One out shortly. And then we've got this cool interview lined up with a lieutenant colonel in the Army. And he's going to join us to talk about all things military in the Star Wars universe using Rogue One as an entry point. So that'll be a separate interview that will release later in February. Earthsea, we're going to be reading Dragonfly, and then we're going to use that as a bridge into The Other Wind. Silmarillion stories of men. Of men.
Of men.
Speaking of men, we did a first part podcast on Masters of the Air. Brandon and I did that. We covered episodes 1 and 2. And then we're going to do a season recap once the season is completely over. We've got a channel set up on the Discord. There's a lot of people talking about that because it's bringing up a lot of interesting questions and discussion around World War II and the air war and bombing campaigns and things like that. So it's an okay show. It's not great. It's not terrible. But we're definitely going to put a bow on it at the end of the season. John, have you watched any of Mr. and Mrs. Smith yet?
No, I haven't.
I think you're going to really, I hope you're going to like the show because it is hilarious. I don't know. I'm not supposed to say much else more because we're still under embargo, but that is coming up very shortly. And I think it's tomorrow. I think it airs tomorrow by the time. So
cool.
This will be fine. The embargo should be lifted by the time this podcast comes out. But I'm up to episode 4 of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and it is a hoot, an absolute hoot. So
that's cool. I like the actors involved with it.
It's really good. So I hope you can check it out, and we can at least maybe we'll do a one shot because it's a binge on. Amazon,
we can't do episodic coverage. We were like, hey, we're gonna take it easy this year. We're not gonna overload ourselves. And you're like, maybe we should do a scene by scene of Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Halo.
No, these are one shots.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think Halo will be a 2-shot ish.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, you want to shout out our lore masters before we get out of here? Before it's 2.5 hours, we're at 2:21.
Yeah, an hour and a half. John, don't worry, it's an hour and a half. Sure, I would love to. I'm stalling because I didn't have the list pulled up. Samartian, Mark H, Michael G, Michelle E, David W, Brian P, Nick W, SC, Peter OH, Bettina W, Adam S, Nancy M, Duve71, Brian 8063, who's a Dunadan, Frederick H, Sarah L, Gareth C, Eric F, Matthew M, Sarah M, DJ Miwa, Andra B, Kwang Yu, Deadeye Jedi, Bob, Nathan T, Alex V, Aaron T, Sub-Zero, Aaron K, a Dunadan, Dally V21, Gnarls, and the last Shelby first. Is that what you're trying to say here, David?
Yes.
Adrian. I see you have many titles for Adrian.
I was trying to mix it up. I was trying to spice it up a little bit.
Yes. All right. If you're wondering why I just listed off names because I did a bad job introducing it, these are our Patreon lore masters. They're our top tier patrons. They support us every month and keep us able to cover shows like True Detective and dedicate 2.5 hours to each episode when David lies to me about the length of the episode. So if you want to get in on Patreon, you can get early and ad-free access to our podcast. You can get the Detective's Notebook. You can get a lot of fun features and exclusive podcasts like Second Breakfast and Shireside Chats, of which there will be one 3 days from when this episode airs. So
Excellent.
It is scheduled on Patreon. It's coming. So head on the Patreon if you want that. If not, we'll see you for the next episode of True Detective. The Lorehounds podcast is produced and published by The Lorehounds. You can send questions and feedback and voicemails at thelorehounds.com/contact. Get early and ad-free access to all Lorehounds podcasts at patreon.com/thelorehounds. Any opinions stated are ours personally and do not reflect the opinion of or belong to any employers or other entities. Thanks for listening.